Chapter 823. In the 13 prefectures, the leaders of the geniuses were all gathered together, standing in 13 different directions. As the silhouettes soared through the air, the geniuses of the various prefectures were all divided into groups of 1,000. The 13 prefectures were respectively, Eastern Prefecture, Qian Prefecture, Li Prefecture, Cloud Prefecture, Qian Prefecture, Jing Prefecture, Thunder Prefecture, Yu Prefecture, Rock Prefecture, Blazing Sun Prefecture, Supreme Moon Prefecture, Western Desert Prefecture and Underworld Prefecture. The first 9 prefectures were located in the central region while the last 4 were located in the 4 directions. Among them, the Eastern Prefecture, Qian Prefecture and Li Prefecture were the strongest of the 13 prefectures and were located in the central region of the 13 prefectures. As for the second most powerful ones, they weren't the other 6 prefectures but the 4 prefectures at the periphery. The Blazing Sun Prefecture, Supreme Moon Prefecture, Western Desert Prefecture and Underworld Prefecture. In fact, there was a saying that the strength of these 4 prefectures might not be weaker compared to the 3 most famous prefectures in the central region. The Eastern Prefecture, Qian Prefecture and Li Prefecture were the central regions where the geniuses from all over the world gathered. As for the 4 directions, they were located at the periphery, bordering other immortal empires or supreme powers. The external environment was extremely harsh and they had to be strong to survive. Not only that, the Dongshengshan Gate also had a powerful army stationed there. Hence, these 4 prefectures were extremely terrifying. The Blazing Sun Prefecture and Supreme Moon Prefecture were located opposite each other, while the Western Desert Prefecture and Underworld Prefecture were located opposite each other. The Red Sun region was scorching hot all year round, and the flames of the sun burned vigorously. The Great Moon region was the exact opposite. The Western Desert region was also extremely hot, and its territory was extremely vast. There were many desert cities, and many powerful races had appeared there. The people there also cultivated in all sorts of strange ways. The people of the Underworld region were known as the Hell region. These 4 prefectures each had their own unique characteristics and were extremely powerful. Only the 6 prefectures at the periphery, Jing Prefecture, Qian Prefecture, Cloud Prefecture, Thunder Prefecture, Yu Prefecture and Rock Prefecture weren't as unique and their average strength was also relatively weaker. As for the geniuses of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, in terms of fame, the Eastern Prefecture was naturally the most famous. Other than them were the Qian and Li prefectures. After all, the banquet this time around was held in the Eastern Prefecture and the Qian and Li prefectures were the 3 prefectures closest to the Eastern Prefecture. And it was precisely because of this reason that Gusu Tianqi, Xia Jiufeng, Yi Qianchen and Sang Ao's fame was the greatest, and they were highly regarded by the people of the Eastern Prefecture. But in truth, back then when Yi Zixuan hosted the banquet, he invited geniuses from all 13 prefectures. The top 3 geniuses from the 4 prefectures of the 4 great prefectures were all similarly unfathomable, giving off an extremely dangerous feeling. Even if the geniuses from the 6 prefectures could be ranked in the top 3, how bad would they be? As over 10,000 geniuses gathered here, a stifling pressure permeated this entire area. The aura they exuded was simply too strong. Although they were merely at the celestial phenomenon realm, with over 10,000 geniuses standing together, they naturally formed a natural pressure field that could crush everything. Qin Wendian and his 2 companions arrived, heading straight for the Idle Cloud Immortal King's camp. He, Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian surveyed the experts here as their countenances turned heavy and solemn. These were the opponents they would be contending against this time around. There were many extraordinary geniuses among them. Just a single glance was enough to cause a faint pressure to radiate from them. Geniuses were as common as the clouds. They understood that it didn't mean that only the top 3 rankers were demon-level characters. The other geniuses weren't necessarily weaker compared to the top 3. For example, Qin Wendian, he was only ranked 27th. But could it be that Qin Wendian's talent was only ranked 27th in the Cloud Prefecture? In that case, there was no need for him to participate in the grand banquet this time around. If he was ranked 27th in the Cloud Prefecture, how could he contend for the top 3 positions in the 13 prefectures? They've arrived, the geniuses of the 13 prefectures have all arrived. The crowd below all inclined their heads and stared up in the air, feeling shock in their hearts. What a powerful aura, there were so many supreme characters here. Gusu Tianqi has also arrived, standing in the direction of the Eastern Prefecture. Although he isn't standing at the forefront and seems to be very low profile, I could still see him with a single glance. Someone pointed to a certain direction. Over there was a young man who exuded no aura at all. Just by casually standing there, it was as though he was the most illustrious existence in the crowd. Nobody could obstruct the radiance radiating from him. That aura of an innate immortal king seemed to be formed naturally, as though he was destined to be an innate immortal king. There was a formless halo around him. There were some people who were already destined from the moment they were born. They would definitely become a character whose name would shake the world. Gusu Tianqi, the sole descendant of 9 generations, was precisely such a character. Those around him didn't dare to get too close to him, as their radiance was blocked by him. It was as though there was a unique aura radiating from Gusu Tianqi, causing others to look up to him in admiration. Qin Wentian also noticed Gusu Tianqi, who was standing among the crowd of the Eastern Prefecture. The contours of his face could be clearly seen, and he looked very young. His handsome countenance was as calm as still water, with no ripples at all. His forehead was plump, and the space between his brows were as sharp as a blade. That pair of deep black eyes gleamed with a terrifying light, and even when they weren't focused, they still shone with a terrifying light. Other than Gusu Tianqi, there was another person among the crowd of the Eastern Prefecture that attracted Qin Wentian's attention. This person was tall and skinny, exuding an extraordinary aura. His domineering eyes stared at Gusu Tianqi, as though he wanted to clash head-on with him. This person was none other than the second ranker of the Eastern Prefecture, Xia Jiufeng. So many demon-level geniuses. Beside him, Jun Mengchen mumbled. Qin Wentian and Zi Qingxian both nodded their heads. Other than these two from the Eastern Prefecture, there were also many other outstanding characters. That person is so strange, he's the #1 ranker of the Blazing Sun Prefecture. His body seems to be surrounded by numerous blazing suns, radiating a fearsome halo of the sun. Just a single glance at him made me feel a wave of heat, as though I was about to be ignited. If I fought against him, wouldn't that be even more terrifying? Below, the crowd sighed in admiration as they stared in the direction of the Blazing Sun Prefecture. Not only for the #1 ranker, there were also many experts from the Blazing Sun Prefecture who had a halo of their own. The people from the Supreme Moon Prefecture are the exact opposite. They give off an extremely cold and gloomy feeling. Look at the people from the Underworld Prefecture. Those people are so ugly and have strange shapes. It's too terrifying, it's like they really walked out from the Netherworld. The Underworld Prefecture and Western Desert Prefecture also have gigantic giants. What race are they? There are also monks, it's extremely rare to see monk cultivators. However, there are quite a few in the Western Desert Prefecture. The Western Desert Prefecture is located in a desolate land with an extremely vile environment. There are even chaotic flows of energy from the heavens, easily destroying a city. Even if it's built up, it could be destroyed in a single night. Hence, the number of cities in the Western Desert Prefecture is the lowest. Many places are deserts and the races are the most chaotic. That's true. The 4 prefectures are all very powerful. Their territories are connected to many particle worlds. Didn't the Deep Flame Immortal King frequently set up camp in the Underworld Prefecture? There were all sorts of voices below. Qin Wentian's perception was extremely powerful and he would occasionally be able to hear the voices. He couldn't help but to sigh in admiration at how vast and mysterious the immortal realms were. Even in the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, there were so many things he didn't know about. After entering the immortal realms, he directly entered the Cloud Prefecture. The Cloud Prefecture in the central region seemed to be one of the more peaceful prefectures. In the entire 13 prefectures, there were many unimaginable races and strange lands that he had yet to truly come into contact with. Move out. At this moment, the governor of the Eastern Prefecture commanded. Instantly, the 1,000 geniuses of the Eastern Prefecture all moved out. Move out. Move out, the governors of the 13 prefectures all commanded. All the geniuses in this space moved out, heading in the direction of the Dongshengshan Gate. Over 10,000 experts soared through the air. They were able to overlook this ancient emperor city. They couldn't see the end of this incomparably powerful emperor city, but they could see a statue in the distance that was so tall that it reached the heavens. This statue truly towered up into the heavens. Even if one stood extremely far away, they would still be able to see its existence. This was the tallest and most majestic statue in the entire Eastern Immortal City, or even the entire Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. The other statues weren't allowed to surpass the size of this statue because the one carved in it was the hegemon of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, the Eastern Sage Heaven Emperor. Do you see that statue? How majestic! That must be His Majesty. This statue is located at the highest point of the Dongshengshan Gate. It's a symbol of unparalleled status. Someone spoke. Anyone who sees this statue should feel respect and reverence. This is His Majesty, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. If you are disrespectful or profane the statue of His Majesty would be able to sense it. Is it really so mystical? Someone questioned. That's an immortal emperor. That level of cultivation isn't something we can imagine. A single thought of theirs can connect the heavens and earth, creating laws with a wave of their hands. How terrifying is that? We basically have no way to touch it. In any case, when you see the statue of His Majesty, you must be respectful. If not, even if you soar up to the heavens one day, if His Majesty knows that you were disrespectful to Him before, although His Majesty wouldn't do anything to you given His status, He definitely wouldn't attach any importance to you. The group of people chatted as they walked. Finally, they got closer and closer to the towering statue. When they were 1,000 miles away from it, they had already arrived outside the Dongshengshan Gate. Numerous immortal arched gates, immortal stairways, and the statues of the 4 paragons of the Dongshengshan Gate could be seen. Even the governors of the 13 prefectures all landed on the ground and bowed to the statues of the 4 paragons. The experts of the various prefectures also landed on the ground. After which, many imitated them and bowed to the 4 paragons. The 4 paragons of the Dongshengshan Gate were the founders of the Dongshengshan Gate. They were the 4 paragons who followed the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor when he conquered the world. They were so powerful that it was inconceivable, and now, they no longer appeared in public. All of them were pursuing the immortal emperor realm, and their strength had already reached an extreme, surpassing countless immortal kings. There were also rumors that one of the 4 paragons had already stepped into the immortal emperor realm. The 4 paragons were the founders of the Dongshengshan Gate. They were the guardians of the Dongshengshan Gate. Who would dare to be disrespectful? In the 13 prefectures, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor was a god while the 4 paragons were war generals. Even for supremely powerful existences like the Deep Flame Immortal King, there was still a huge disparity between them and the 4 paragons. After paying their respects to the 4 paragons, the 13 immortal kings led the geniuses of the various prefectures up the stairway. After which, a thunderous bell chime rang out. Up ahead, the experts of the Dongshengshan Gate had smiles on their faces as they welcomed the geniuses of the 13 prefectures. Chapter 824. We've arrived. The gazes of the crowd stared ahead. On the stairway, the experts all had immortal halos around them, exuding a resplendent aura. However, the crowd discovered that behind these experts, there was still an arched gate. It was unknown how vast the Dongshengshan Gate was. It was comparable to a city, and they had just arrived at the entrance. I will leave them to all of you. The leader of the Eastern Prefecture spoke. After which, the immortal kings of the 13 prefectures respectively stepped forward. The experts on the stairway opened up a path for them as they respectfully spoke. Immortal kings, this way please. The seniors of our sect have been waiting for us for a long time. Just leave these geniuses to us. The group of immortal kings nodded as they stepped into the interior of the Dongshengshan Gate, leaving the geniuses behind. All of you are geniuses from the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. Since you are able to participate in this grand banquet, one can see that your talent is extremely outstanding. However, the Dongshengshan Gate has never accepted mortals. Through this grand banquet, all of you will have a chance to join the Dongshengshan Gate. However, the Dongshengshan Gate will only accept 1,000 disciples. Next, there will be a battle waiting for all of you. Among you, the majority will be eliminated, leaving only 1,000. These 1,000, as long as they are willing, they can become nominal disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate. This is the first step for them to take to enter the Dongshengshan Gate. On the stairway, an expert radiating immortal light walked out as he spoke to the tens of thousands of geniuses. With regards to his words, the crowd didn't feel surprised. What was the purpose of the Dongshengshan Gate gathering the 13 prefectures? It was naturally to strengthen their foundation and strength, selecting the most outstanding geniuses from the 13 prefectures. This is only the first round of the examination. The top 1,000 can all become external disciples. For those who pass, they will continue to participate in the next round. However, let's not talk about this for now. In any case, you all should know that if there's someone who can walk all the way to the end and become one of the top 3 rankers, his name would shake the world and become a nominal disciple of the Eastern Sage Great Emperor. There's even a chance for him to receive guidance from the Eastern Sage Great Emperor. In fact, if the Eastern Sage Great Emperor is fond of you, he might even accept you as his personal disciple. All of you must cherish this opportunity well. That expert spoke to the crowd. It was as though to everyone, this was a great opportunity for them. Although these 10,000 plus people were all geniuses from the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, it was still an honor for them to enter the Dongshengshan Gate. Because, the Dongshengshan Gate was the strongest power in the 13 prefectures. These people might very well be the most outstanding geniuses of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. However, the Dongshengshan Gate itself was a place where all the geniuses of the 13 prefectures were gathered. Among them, the majority would still be eliminated. 1,000 people were allowed to enter the Dongshengshan Gate. For the first test, the location will be the sacred cultivation ground of the Dongshengshan Gate, the Eastern Sage Cliff. The Immortal Foundation expert in the lead continued. The Eastern Sage Cliff was the most common cultivation ground for disciples below the Immortal Foundation realm of the Dongshengshan Gate. It was a sacred ground for cultivation, and this time around, it would be used as a tempering ground for the geniuses of the 13 prefectures. The Dongshengshan Gate placed great importance on this test. Once every 100 years, it would select geniuses from the 13 prefectures. The significance of this test to the Dongshengshan Gate was extraordinary as well. The Eastern Sage Cliff. Those geniuses who knew of this place all exclaimed in a low voice as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Naturally, there were also many who had already guessed it. Because this time around, the cultivation bases of the 10,000 plus geniuses were all different, ranging from the first level to the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. If one wanted to determine how strong their talent was, the Eastern Sage Cliff would definitely be one of the tests. The Eastern Sage Cliff didn't test one's cultivation base, only one's state of heart and comprehension. Now, all of you can follow me to the Eastern Sage Cliff of my Dongshengshan Gate. Right now, all the disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate have already exited the Eastern Sage Cliff, leaving a place for all of you. Let's move out. That expert spoke. After that, he walked towards the depths of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect. The others all followed after him and soared up into the air, soaring into the air. Although the Dongshengshan Gate was a sect, it seemed to be boundlessly vast, resembling an ancient city. There were countless majestic buildings in the city, and there were experts standing in the air, staring at them. Isn't this Dongshengshan Gate a little too big? Many people sighed. It was rumored that the Dongshengshan Gate had a total of 100,000 direct disciples and over 1 million external disciples. If the troops of the Dongshengshan Gate were added in as well as the subordinates of the Dongshengshan Gate, the number of disciples could reach a terrifying number of over 10 million. This was the terrifying strength of a peak power in the immortal realms. They could easily conquer an entire region and control countless particle worlds. In front of the Eastern Sage Cliff, there were many disciples of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect. When they saw the 13,000 geniuses arriving, their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Did these people also want to become disciples of the Eastern Sage Immortal sect? I heard that there are many powerful characters in this batch. Let's hope they won't disappoint us too much. A young man crossed his arms in front of his chest as he spoke with a smile. The Eastern Sage Cliff was extremely vast, so vast that one couldn't even see the end of it. The surroundings were filled with ancient mountains and cliffs, and the entire Eastern Sage Cliff was enveloped by a strange light screen. This light screen seemed to be a supremely terrifying grand formation. Resplendent runes flowed on the surface of the light screen, forming an incomparably wondrous diagram, beautiful and mysterious. They interweaved together to form a marvelous law energy that permeated the entire Eastern Sage Cliff. The Immortal Foundation expert stood in front of the Eastern Sage Cliff. He turned his head and stared at the crowd as he spoke in a clear voice. The Eastern Sage Cliff has its own set of laws. Once you enter, some of your energy will be sealed. However, this law energy will grant you a strength equivalent to a 9th level ascendant, as well as an inexhaustible supply of astral energy. Anyone can fight crazily, but your constellations, innate techniques will all be temporarily sealed. The only thing you can use is the power of your astral souls. There's no way to imprison astral souls, that's your innate talent. Your constellations were also born from your comprehensions, but because of the difference in your cultivation bases, the Eastern Sage Cliffs decided to imprison them to prevent them from interfering with your battles. Naturally, we won't seal your bloodlines as well. That's something you were born with. That Immortal Foundation expert explained. Everyone naturally understood what he meant. Astral souls were a part of their innate talent. If their astral souls were strong, they were strong. If they were weak, they were weak. Hence, they wouldn't be sealed. Originally, constellations were the same as well. However, the disparity in comprehension between 1st level ascendants and 9th level ascendants was simply too great. Even if the Eastern Sage Cliff bestowed them with the same amount of energy, the disparity in their comprehension of the constellations would easily result in a disparity in strength. Hence, the Eastern Sage Cliff decided to seal them. His bloodline was the same as his astral souls, it would always follow Wu Xiao and wouldn't be sealed as well. As for innate techniques and cultivation arts, they were all sealed because there might be people who had comprehended powerful innate techniques and cultivation arts while there were others who didn't. However, these were all outsiders and were different from astral souls and bloodlines. This could still be changed. Go on. The Eastern Sage Cliff is a place where many immortals of the Dongshengshan Gate comprehend their cultivation. There are plenty of good fortune waiting for you, and if you can grab hold of it, your strength would definitely be much stronger after exiting. In addition, there are many small-scale spatial formations within the Eastern Sage Cliff. If you wish to exit, you only need to step into one and activate it. The remaining 1,000 participants will be considered to have passed the test. Now, you all can enter. After speaking, that person stepped aside, revealing the boundlessly vast Eastern Sage Cliff before everyone's eyes. Forgetting yourself and comprehending your own strength, this is what it means to cultivate in a state of selflessness. That Immortal Foundation expert spoke in a low voice. A moment later, the crowd all sped towards the Eastern Sage Cliff. Bright lights flashed unceasingly as numerous silhouettes madly entered. The Eastern Sage Cliff, the path of selflessness. Let's go. Qin Wendian and the others stepped out together, directly entering the light screen. In an instant, a spatial energy enveloped them, and after that, Qin Wendian only felt his body being enveloped by spatial energy. In an instant, he appeared within the Eastern Sage Cliff. Standing alone on this vast land, the light screen in the air transformed into law energy that flowed unceasingly into his body. An incomparably powerful law energy seemed to be rewriting his physique, and in just a short instant, Qin Wendian felt an incomparably vast energy surging within him. The law energy in the air seemed to be resonating with his body, forming a mysterious connection that was impossible to sever. Is this the power of a 9th level ascendant? Next, for those who enter the Eastern Sage Cliff, they would all have the same level of strength. For now, the only difference would be in terms of bloodline and astral souls. Qin Wentian surveyed the interior of the eastern sage cliff as his perception frenziedly extended outwards. He discovered that there was only a single person within. From this, one could very well imagine how vast the eastern sage cliff was. That is. Qin Wentian saw a golden spatial diagram on the ground. This should be the small-scale spatial formation that the Immortal Foundation expert spoke of. It had a connection with the light screen in the air, allowing one to teleport out directly after stepping into it. It could be used for fleeing in the middle of a battle, avoiding death. Sounds of sonic booms rang out, and an instant later, a person appeared not far away from Qin Wentian. This was none other than the only person he could sense. Evidently, this person had also discovered him, Qin Wentian. Someone from the Jing prefecture. Qin Wentian glanced at the medallion on the person's chest. This person's ranking in the Jing prefecture wasn't low, he was ranked 96th, BZZ. A resplendent astral soul appeared around that person. It was a fearsome, ferocious primordial bird, causing a pair of wings to appear on his back. A baleful aura gushed forth as he sped towards Qin Wentian. That person grabbed out with his palm as a terrifying might directly blasted out, akin to the sharp claws of a ferocious primordial bird. Over 10,000 participants, only 1,000 would be chosen. Everyone was very clear what this meant. For the remaining participants, they would either die or use the small-scale spatial formation to scram out. Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms, subconsciously unleashing an innate technique. However, an instant later, he discovered that a mysterious law energy directly interrupted his palm imprint. There was no longer any gigantic palm imprint, his innate technique had already been sealed. This kind of sealing was a type of law destruction. Bang! His opponent's ferocious claws slashed over. With a light swishing sound, Qin Wentian was forced backwards as traces of blood could be seen on his arms. The strength of the two of them was the same, both at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. However, his opponent used the power of his astral souls. Qin Wentian acted hastily because of his habit of using innate techniques and not using the power of his astral souls. He was forced back with a single strike. This eastern sage cliff sect is truly fair. Qin Wentian's lips curled up in a smile, yet he only saw a mocking expression flickering on his opponent's face. He then stared at Qin Wentian, ranked 27th in the Cloud Prefecture. Seems like you're nothing much. Chapter 825. If I were you, I wouldn't be in such a hurry to deal with the others. After all, given your strength, you can easily scram if you encounter any powerful opponents. Don't tell me you think you can do whatever you want in the Eastern Sage Cliff just by condensing an astral soul from the 6th heavenly layer? Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice as he stepped out. Hints of mockery could be seen in his eyes, and as he spoke, he released his 2 astral souls. One was the demon sovereign astral soul, while the other was a sword-type astral soul. Instantly, his silhouette grew increasingly demonic as a terrifying sharpness exuded from him. Only a so-so. Qin Wentian released another astral soul. This time, it was a devilish body with 3 heads and 6 arms, causing his physique to grow taller and more imposing. These 2 astral souls were his 4th and 5th astral souls, originating from the 5th and 6th heavenly layers respectively. The astral souls of these geniuses weren't something the geniuses of particle worlds could compare to. A demonic blood-colored light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes as the demon sovereign astral soul behind him grew even more violent. Terrifying blood-colored runic light circulated around his body. This was the power of his bloodline, it wasn't a sealing technique. However, his opponent also released the power of his bloodline, causing his strength to grow even stronger. There were many geniuses in the immortal realms who had the power of their bloodlines. It's just that some of them were ordinary, while some of them had unique bloodlines. The 2 of them finally neared each other. Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms, not using any innate techniques, only the purest form of strength. His opponent had 3 heads and 6 arms, and all 6 of his arms blasted out at the same time. Killing intent flashed in his eyes, and at the same time, his astral souls also shot out towards his opponent. Bang! A violent surge of energy akin to that of a demon king erupted forth, tearing apart his opponent's arm. Qin Wentian's demonic king bloodline gushed forth as his entire person was enveloped by a terrifying ancient demon. A terrifying demonic silhouette actually appeared, peering down with disdain on all living beings. The explosive force of that punch directly sent his opponent flying through the air as he coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. The other party's expression turned sluggish. His silhouette flickered as he rapidly retreated. Looking at Qin Wentian, who was like a demon king, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. Qin Wentian didn't give chase when he saw his opponent leaving. He retracted his aura as sword chi whistled through the air. Stepping on the sword chi, he soared towards the horizons. This was the holy ground of cultivation for disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate, the Eastern Sage Cliff. There would surely be many miraculous things about it. Since the first test was held here, it wouldn't be so simple as comparing astral souls and bloodlines. An instant later, Qin Wentian arrived at a precipitous cliff. This precipitous cliff was extremely smooth, and there were many stone platforms at the bottom. Footprints could be seen on each of the stone platforms, and there seemed to be many people comprehending the innate techniques engraved on the precipitous cliff. There were many diagrams engraved on the smooth cliff. Wind rocks of different shapes and sizes appeared, and there were actually lines flickering on them. It was as if these wind rocks were living creatures. From the bottom to the top, they broke through the air step by step, riding the wind as they transformed into wind rocks, soaring through the clouds. This is a set of movement techniques. Qin Wentian instantly understood. This movement technique should have been created by the predecessors of the Dongshengshan Gate. His eyes flashed as he memorized the diagrams in his mind. After which, he started cultivating in his dreamscape. It was as though he himself had transformed into a wind rock. Every movement of the diagrams was reflected in his mind. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Qin Wentian soared up into the skies. He didn't step on the sword might, but instead, he actually transformed into a wind rock. The shadow of a wind rock could be seen around him, as though he had already transformed into a wind rock. This movement technique was left behind by the predecessors, and was an immortal art. It was most suitable for those who were proficient in the energy of wind and space. When one cultivated it to the peak, they would transform into wind rocks, capable of traversing through the void and traversing 1,000 miles with a single flash. However, Qin Wentian didn't stay behind to comprehend the true essence of this immortal art. Although this movement technique was powerful, it wasn't suitable for him. Not only that, if he wanted to comprehend immortal energy, he would have to spend a lot of time. Hence, he only comprehended the wind rock form that was suitable for celestial phenomenon ascendance before he left. Qin Wentian soared in the wind, and along the way, he met several people who were all searching for a place to cultivate. Qin Wentian didn't stop at all. When they saw Qin Wentian's movement technique, they all wanted to chase after him. This movement technique was simply too fast. Since this young man was able to comprehend it in such a short period of time, his comprehension ability must definitely be extraordinary. Sword arts. Qin Wentian, who was in the air, abruptly saw a fearsome sword chi gushing forth from the stone rampart below. His silhouette flickered and swiftly appeared in front of the stone rampart. There were many footprints here as well, and there was a shadow flickering about on the stone rampart, resembling a living creature. His sword chi was extremely terrifying. The speed of his sword was as fast as lightning, while the speed of his sword was like the tempestuous waves of a tsunami. His movements were both incomparably violent. Beside Qin Wentian, there was another person quietly cultivating. This person was none other than a supreme genius of the Eastern Prefecture. Although Qin Wentian appeared, he didn't even glance at Qin Wentian. He was quietly immersed in his own comprehension. He was very clear that the Eastern Sage Cliff was a holy ground for cultivation. Here, other than fighting head-on, one must also do their best to cultivate to the peak of their strength, increasing their own strength. Once one's strength reached a certain level, how could they not persevere until the very end? Only by strengthening one's body would one be able to enter the upper echelons. Looking for others to battle with, that was simply foolishness. Only those with weak talent would do so. Qin Wendian stood on another stone platform and stared at the immortal ranked sword art inscribed on the stone rampart. In just an instant, he was completely immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. This sword art was extremely profound and contained boundless might. Very swiftly, he came to a scene where a person was cultivating the sword. His sword was as fast as the wind, so fast that one couldn't even see the sword itself, only sword shadows could be seen. When the sword was slow, it would slash apart the mountain rampart, and at the very end, the might of the immortal sword would be unleashed. This sword art was very similar to the immortal sword arts Qin Wendian had cultivated before. The immortal vanquishing swordplay was an immortal art that ignited one's body to increase one's strength. It was suitable to be used when fighting with one's life on the line. As for this sword art, it was a true combat sword art. Now that Qin Wendian wielded the demon sword, he truly needed a sword art to complement it. Qin Wendian was soon immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. After a period of time, although he still stood there quietly, traces of terrifying sword chi radiated from him. In the surrounding space, numerous silhouettes of Qin Wendian could be seen. These silhouettes were all born for the sake of the sword. The two of them stood 300 meters apart, not disturbing each other as they quietly comprehended the sword art. This state of comprehension lasted for a month. During this period of time, there were many geniuses who passed by but they didn't disturb them. In the entire Eastern Sage Cliff, there weren't many battles that occurred. These geniuses from the 13 prefectures all had extraordinary temperaments and very soon, they all understood why this place was known as the Holy Land for cultivation at the Dongshengshan Gate. There were actually all sorts of movement techniques and secrets within. If they didn't cultivate it properly, it would truly be a waste of heavenly treasures. Today, in front of the stone rampart, regardless of Qin Wendian or the other expert, both of them radiated terrifying sword chi. The sword chi of the two of them seemed to faintly converge. Abruptly, the eyes of that expert snapped open as a dazzling sword light flashed within. After which, his silhouette flickered as he transformed into a fearsome sharpness, directly piercing towards Qin Wendian. That beam of light was sufficient to slash Qin Wendian apart in an instant. It was extremely dangerous. However, at the instant his silhouette descended, terrifying waves of sword might gushed forth from Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian seemed to be moving very slowly, yet when he slashed out with his sword, it actually contained a heaven-rending might that could cleave apart the heavens and earth. A beam of sword chi directly arced through the air, leaving a terrifying sword scar on the ground. The eyes of that expert were like supreme swords, capable of penetrating the hearts of others. Humming sounds of sword chi rang out as the two of them sped towards each other. In just an instant, a towering sword might gushed forth, as though the entire space was filled with sword shadows. In a short instant, both of them had manifested a total of 81 sword shadows, exuding an extremely terrifying sword chi. If the current Qin Wendian encountered the Qin Wendian who had just entered the Eastern Sage Cliff, he would be able to defeat him with ease. In order to enter the Eastern Sage Cliff, one had to work hard to raise their strength. If not, no matter how strong one's astral soul or bloodline was, they would be eliminated sooner or later. In the blink of an eye, both of them had unleashed over 300 sword strikes before they finally separated again. The other expert floated in the air, casting a serious glance at Qin Wendian. Cloud Prefecture, Qin Wendian, 27. His opponent stared at Qin Wendian. Eastern Prefecture, Jing Yunhe, number 5. Qin Wendian stared at the medallion hanging on his opponent's chest as he spoke. This person was ranked number 5 in the Eastern Prefecture. His comprehension of swordsmanship wasn't inferior to Qin Wendian at all. You have the qualifications to advance and won't be eliminated. As the sound of Jing Yunhe's voice faded, his body transformed into a beam of sword light that soared up into the skies, not continuing to battle. Qin Wendian also transformed into a wind rock, riding the wind and treading on the waves as he advanced towards the depths of the Eastern Sage Cliff. Qin Wendian sped through the air, peering downwards. Abruptly, his eyes flashed as he saw several silhouettes appearing in front of a cave dwelling. All of them were hesitating, standing there, not daring to enter. Before them, there were several corpses lying quietly on the ground. Some of the corpses were badly mutilated. It was evident that they had all been killed. It was an extremely miserable sight to behold. What's in the cave dwelling that caused such an intense battle to occur? Qin Wendian halted in the air as he stared at these people. These people came from different prefectures, and there was even one who was ranked number 46 in the Thunder Prefecture. All of them were hesitating outside the cave, not daring to enter. Their eyes flashed with a hint of struggle. Qin Wendian's silhouette flickered as he instantly descended. Momentarily, the gazes of these people all turned to him, their eyes gleaming with sharpness. "What's in there?" Qin Wendian asked. "Scram." One of them glared at Qin Wendian as he coldly spoke. Qin Wendian's silhouette was like a wind rock, akin to a bolt of lightning. A terrifying sword light slashed out, causing that person to retreat explosively. Rumbling sounds rang out as sword chi tore apart the skies. In the blink of an eye, numerous sword shadows appeared in the air, and in the next instant, a sword was pressed against the neck of the person who spoke. That person was drenched in cold sweat. As long as Qin Wendian waved his hand, he would die here. "Speak." Qin Wendian turned his gaze towards the cave dwelling. He didn't even bother to glance at that person. There are many true projections of an immortal foundation expert's cultivation path. That person hurriedly added. "In addition, there's already someone in there who's extremely powerful. Sir, please be careful." This person intentionally spoke so clearly, he didn't lie. Naturally, he hoped that Qin Wendian would spare him. Chapter 826. Qin Wendian's will was blocked by a formless energy. He put down the sword in his hand and walked into the cave. This was a cultivation cave. The interior was vast and spacious. After passing through 3 caves, he saw beams of golden light shooting out, resembling golden tribulation energy, unceasingly slashing down on the void, forming a screen of destruction that was extremely terrifying. Qin Wendian also saw a silhouette in the background. This silhouette was clad in an earth-yellow kasaya and his hair was reflective. He didn't wear shoes and was barefooted. His exposed skin was bronze in color, exuding a sense of masculinity. That tattered kasaya, as well as his yellow feet that were filled with calluses, clearly indicated that this person was a monk who could endure hardship. It was unknown how many mountains and rivers he had traversed. However, this monk casually stood there, yet he actually gave off an ancient and solemn feeling. His back view gave off a sense of strength and was extremely powerful. Outside the cave, there were several corpses. Clearly, this monk wasn't a monk who didn't kill. In the cruel immortal realms, there were many monks who didn't believe in kindness. They believed in suffering, tempering themselves, and didn't seek pleasure. They only wanted to cultivate and transcend themselves. Abruptly, a bone-chilling killing intent directly enveloped Qin Wendian. In just an instant, Qin Wendian felt as though he was in purgatory. That ice-cold killing intent caused all his hopes to turn to dust. "Get out." A solemn voice drifted over from the front, containing an indisputable intent, wanting Qin Wendian to leave this cave. Although that monk spoke, he didn't turn his head. In fact, his body didn't move at all, like an old monk in a meditative state. His strength of concentration had reached a terrifying extent. His entire person was able to remain unmoving. Qin Wendian didn't listen to the monk's words and chose to step out. He continued forward, only to see that at this moment, the monk's palm blasted out behind him. With a thunderous boom, Qin Wendian only saw a gigantic golden bell blasting towards him. This golden bell seemed to be covered in runes, resplendent and resplendent. When the golden light shot out, it was like a golden calamity that could destroy everything. The sound of the bell rang out, and the ancient bell vibrated. Qin Wendian's sword chi suddenly bloomed from his body. He took a step forward, and his sword chi soared into the sky. He waved his hand, and his sword cut through the void. Boom! The terrifying sound of vibration resounded in the cave residence, reverberating wildly, shaking Qin Wendian's scalp numb. The power of the golden lightning was extremely terrifying, but his sword still cut the ancient bell in half. Buzz! Another ancient bell erupted forth. Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed. That monk could actually unleash an ancient bell attack with a wave of his hand. Seems like this monk had been here for a very long time and had comprehended the essence of this innate technique. The sword qi radiating from Qin Wentian towered up into the skies as he slashed out with rage, breaking the ancient bell apart once again. The reverberations of the bell chimes reverberated throughout the entire cavern, causing the bell chimes to reverberate unceasingly. Numerous ancient bells flew towards Qin Wentian, exuding a fearsome might as golden lightning bolts that seemed capable of destroying people. Qin Wentian stared at the back view of the monk as he coldly snorted. His silhouette moved, and in an instant, several sword shadows of Qin Wentian appeared in the cavern. Numerous beams of sword light slashed out at the same time, shattering the ancient bells one after another. Qin Wentian's silhouette also stepped into the final cavern. On his left, the monk wielded a gigantic ancient bell and slammed it towards him. Qin Wentian's gigantic sword directly slammed into the ancient bell. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out as the golden lightning blasted onto the monk and Qin Wentian, causing them to be bathed in golden light. The ancient bell and the sword qi shattered at the same time. The monk's gray eyes finally stared at Qin Wentian. His eyes seemed to possess a terrifying penetrative power, wanting to pierce through Qin Wentian. Wu Bei from the Western Desert Prefecture, ranked 3rd in the Western Desert Prefecture. Qin Wentian glanced at the medallion on the monk's tattered kasaya as his eyes flashed with sharpness. This monk was actually one of the top 3 geniuses of the Western Desert Prefecture. He must definitely be extraordinary. It's said that the people of the 4 great prefectures were all able to endure hardship. The Western Desert Prefecture was the worst. The environment here was extremely harsh and the stellar martial cultivators there were all ascetic cultivators. This Wu Bei truly seemed like a true ascetic monk. At this moment, Qin Wentian also saw the scene within the cavern. Within the cavern, there were many illusory scenes that flickered in and out of existence. In front of a statue, there were many scenes of an Immortal Foundation expert cultivating. This Immortal Foundation expert was currently cultivating an ancient bell immortal art. Many scenes flashed by unceasingly, and every scene was a demonstration of the Immortal Foundation expert using astral energy to forge the ancient bell. After which, golden tribulation energy would be drawn to it, causing it to expand unceasingly, transforming into a terrifying gigantic ancient bell that contained tyrannical might. This kind of demonstration seemed to be a complete immortal art. At the end of the demonstration, a fearsome immortal bell actually appeared, drawing upon the law energy of heaven and earth. The fearsome immortal bell radiated immortal might, capable of annihilating all existences. When the bell vibrated outwards, the entire space around it seemed as though it was about to be destroyed. Immortal remnant shadows. Qin Wentian's countenance gleamed with sharpness. Immortal remnant shadows were able to demonstrate a complete immortal art. This was extremely extraordinary, allowing people to directly observe and comprehend it. For those at the celestial phenomenon realm, although they could cultivate immortal arts, they had to start from the foundation of the immortal art. It was impossible for them to truly unleash the power of the immortal art. It was already considered not bad if they could comprehend 10 to 20% of the immortal art. But immortal remnant shadows didn't allow them to comprehend the immortal art more deeply, allowing them to unleash even greater power. For the same immortal art, if others could comprehend 20%, if you could comprehend 30%, you would be able to easily defeat your opponent. But if you could comprehend 40%, you would most probably be able to insta-kill your opponent. As expected of the Dongshengshan Gate, this was the reason why so many geniuses wanted to join the major powers. For ordinary powers, there weren't even many Immortal Foundation experts, let alone immortal remnant shadows. But in this Eastern Sage Cliff, the disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate could casually come here to comprehend the immortal art. How could their improvement speed not be fast? Just as Qin Wentian was contemplating, a bone-chilling killing intent gushed over. Monk Wu Bei's gray eyes stared at Qin Wentian as his astral soul materialized. A gigantic ancient bell appeared, wanting to fuse with the immortal art. Only to see Wu Bei waving his hands as his astral soul whistled. The bell chimes shook the hearts of Qin Wentian, causing his soul to tremble. At the same time, the terrifying calamity annihilation ancient bell gushed over, enveloping the entire space, wanting to crush all living beings. This monk Wu Bei truly didn't have any mercy at all. Sword chi gushed forth from Qin Wentian as he released his sword-type astral soul. His sword frenziedly slashed out as his body transformed into a wind rock, unceasingly soaring through the air. The bell chimes continued unceasingly. The terrifying ancient bell chimes seemed boundless, as though it wouldn't rest until Qin Wentian was dead. Qin Wentian slashed apart several ancient bells, and finally, an incomparably gigantic ancient bell radiated boundless might, emitting a clanging sound as it descended downwards. Boom! The bell chimes resounded through the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian's body was actually enveloped by the gigantic ancient bell. That monk Wu Bei's countenance was cold as he unceasingly channeled destructive might into the ancient bell. Qin Wentian was trapped within the ancient bell as boundless destructive might gushed forth, as well as the terrifying bell chimes. Qin Wentian's bloodline erupted forth as he released his suppression-type astral soul, blocking the destructive might from getting close to him. As expected of the third ranker of the Western Desert Prefecture. In addition to the fact that he cultivated in front of an immortal's remnant image, he actually has such a powerful strength. Qin Wentian silently mused. Outside, Wu Bei unceasingly unleashed attacks, as though once he acted, he would definitely kill Qin Wentian. He was extremely decisive and ruthless, his temperament extremely terrifying. After a long time, Wu Bei waved his hands as the gigantic ancient bell flew up. A violet gold light erupted forth, causing Wu Bei's expression to stiffen as a dazzling light flickered in his eyes. I won't be able to kill you. Since you want to comprehend this art, just stay here. Just don't disturb me. Wu Bei was extremely decisive. He walked to the side and gave half of his space to Qin Wentian. After recalling the ancient bell, he once again entered a meditative state, entering into a state of comprehension. Qin Wentian nodded lightly. This time around, everyone wanted to eliminate their opponents. It was very normal for them to fight against each other. This monk Wu Bei's strength was extremely tyrannical, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill him. Right now, what he should do was to continue to enrich himself and increase his strength. Only then would he not be at a disadvantage no matter who he faced in the future. Everyone was at the same starting point. Qin Wentian had no way to know what good fortune the others had. Maybe, their good fortune might be even better than his. Qin Wentian turned his gaze ahead, staring at the immortal's remnant image. He was completely immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. The Eastern Sage Cliff bestowed upon them the strength of a 9th-level ascendant, close to immortal foundation. At this moment, a yearning for immortality bloomed in his heart. What is an immortal? Transcending the mortal world, establishing an immortal foundation and wielding immortal might. Immortal might was a type of immortal law energy. Qin Wentian attentively observed the immortal's remnant image, truly comprehending the birth of immortal law energy. In the Eastern Sage Cliff, geniuses were as common as the clouds. As time flowed by, the geniuses in the Eastern Sage Cliff all cultivated their strength. Many of them clashed against each other and there would occasionally be experts being eliminated. On the 70th day since the participants entered the Eastern Sage Cliff, the disparity between geniuses who had the same starting point had already widened. A batch of extremely powerful characters appeared, annihilating whoever they met. These people were all ranked at the very top of the 13 prefectures. True geniuses were born from the trials of blood, they would be able to display their brilliance at any time. Outside the cavern where Qin Wentian and Wu Bei were at, a few more corpses appeared. However, they were still unable to obstruct the flow of geniuses. At this moment, another person stepped into the cavern. Get out! A cold voice rang out, unquestionable and tyrannical. That person laughed coldly, stomping his feet on the ground, causing rumbling sounds to echo out. However, at this moment, a gigantic ancient bell appeared on his left and right respectively. Terrifying booming sounds echoed out, and he only felt his soul about to dissipate. After which, the ancient bell directly smashed into his body, and with a deafening boom, his body directly collapsed onto the ground. No signs of life could be seen. Chapter 827. Qin Wendian quietly cultivated. Today, he finally exited the cavern, leaving this immortal remnant realm. Monk Wu Bei of the Western Desert Prefecture was still meditating in his cave, as though he had forgotten everything. He only wanted to comprehend the true essence of the immortal remnant realm. Qin Wendian was silently impressed by the number 3 ranker of the Western Desert Prefecture, Wu Bei. After entering a meditative state, he didn't budge an inch and was like a boulder, cultivating bitterly for so many days, not bothering about the secret realms of the other prefectures. Such a state of mind wasn't something ordinary people could compare to. Most probably, this was also because he was born in the Western Desert Prefecture. Outside the cavern, there were a few people lingering there, hesitating. Because, there were already corpses outside. This cavern was occupied by 2 powerful geniuses and no one else could enter. It has been many days since the Eastern Sage Cliff tempering grounds and such a situation was common. There were many powerful geniuses who occupied secret realms, not allowing others to gain a foothold there. They were extremely tyrannical. At this moment, upon seeing Qin Wendian exiting, the eyes of those geniuses flickered. They stared at Qin Wendian only to see Qin Wendian's eyes gleaming with sharpness, causing those geniuses to be extremely wary. After which, they only saw Qin Wendian transforming into a wind rock as he soared up into the air and departed. In the air, Qin Wendian sped through the wind. His resplendent eyes stared down at the majestic land below. The Eastern Sage Cliff was boundlessly vast, with countless mysterious realms within. Qin Wendian had no interest in the geniuses here at all. He only had a single thought in his heart, and that was to make use of this opportunity to obtain good fortune from the Eastern Sage Cliff to strengthen himself. Qin Wendian also understood the true meaning behind the mission issued by the Heavenly Talisman Realm. The grand banquet of the Dongshengshan Gate was held once every 100 years. The Dongshengshan Gate would do their best to select the most outstanding disciples and would surely be willing to part with all sorts of resources. This tempering grounds was a chance for them to grow stronger. If they succeeded, they would even be able to obtain benefits from both the Heavenly Talisman Realm and the Dongshengshan Gate. A test was much better than him going into seclusion and cultivating alone. Ordinary people did not dare to fly high in the sky, because it was easy to be seen by others and suffer attacks. After all, this was a competition. Only 1,000 people remained, and the remaining people could become disciples of the celestial sect. Qin Wendian did indeed see many people below. Many of them occupied an area. Some were cultivating alone, some were fighting for a treasured cultivation ground, and some were fighting endlessly. He paid no attention to any of them. The shadow of the wind rock flew past like a gust of wind. Perhaps it was because his speed was too fast, but no one dared to intercept him. Finally, at this moment, Qin Wendian saw an ancient peak below. Outside the ancient peak, there was a magnificent stone platform for cultivation. The stone platform was wide and there were diagrams carved on it, forming their own rules. Qin Wendian's silhouette flickered as he directly dove down, landing on the stone platform. He stared at the walls of the ancient peak before him, only to see a dazzling golden light radiating from it. Numerous runic diagrams flashed, transforming into a circular seal that sealed the entrance to the depths of the ancient peak. It was as though this place was also a secret cultivation ground for an expert. It was just that if one couldn't unravel the runic diagram, they wouldn't be able to enter. Hence, no one dared to stop here. Standing on the stone platform, Qin Wendian observed for a moment before following the passageway. Qin Wendian stretched his hand out and placed it on the runic diagram as beams of runic light flashed in all directions. In just a short instant, the entire runic diagram radiated a dazzling light. Instantly, the runic diagram transformed into a gate that opened to both sides. Qin Wendian directly stepped into it. After stepping into the runic diagram, the gate of light closed once more. The interior of the gate actually opened up as a cool and refreshing feeling drifted over. Before him, there was a stone platform with a waterfall on both sides. Strands of mist lingered in the air, causing one to feel as though they were in an immortal realm. Ahead, there was a simple and unadorned statue that exuded an immortal aura. He sat cross-legged, and before the statue, there were many immortal scrolls. "Junior has offended you." Qin Wendian bowed slightly to the statue. This was a form of respect for the ancestor and nothing else. He walked up and picked up the immortal scrolls, directly entering them with his perception. Instantly, countless words floated before his eyes, incomparably clear. In just an instant, Qin Wendian was completely immersed within. The things recorded in the immortal scrolls weren't innate techniques, nor were they cultivation arts. They were actually the cultivation experiences of this immortal, as well as his views on cultivation. After a long period of time, Qin Wendian placed the first immortal scroll down. He stared at the statue as a hint of admiration could be seen in his eyes. Very rarely would there be seniors who would record their own cultivation experiences for the later generations to view. They would rather pass down their innate techniques to find a successor. Their cultivation experiences wouldn't have instant results, and wouldn't be of any obvious use. But in reality, cultivation experiences were even more valuable. These were the insights of an ancestor, and were extremely useful to the juniors. Qin Wendian picked up the second immortal scroll, and the more he read, the more immersed he became. With a single glance, he seemed to have forgotten the passage of time until he finished reading all the insights of this immortal. Only to see Qin Wendian's eyes gleaming with sharpness as many thoughts flashed through his mind. He stared at the statue before him and stood up, bowing once more before sitting cross-legged on the stone platform. A violet gold light flashed. Qin Wendian directly released his fifth astral soul. Instantly, a violet gold radiance illuminated the entire cavern, illuminating the entire space. It was extremely dazzling. Behind Qin Wendian, a violet gold silhouette of suppression manifested. This silhouette was so dense that it seemed to be corporeal. Resplendent runes circulated around it, containing a boundless and wondrous energy, exuding a suppressive might that was extremely terrifying. From the records of this immortal, one could see that the major powers and experts of the immortal realms all felt that those below the immortal foundation realm who condensed a violet gold astral soul were supreme geniuses, 1 in 100 million. No matter where they went, there would be experts wanting to nurture them. Naturally, this was because the violet gold astral soul was extremely powerful. The power of a violet gold astral soul was publicly acknowledged by everyone. But as to where exactly was it so powerful? Other than the tyrannical astral energy contained within, this immortal also felt that those who condensed a violet gold astral soul would have an innate advantage in cultivation. They could step into the immortal realm faster than ordinary people. This wasn't a secret, and many people knew about it. But why was this so? This immortal felt that a violet gold astral soul contained law energy. The runes on it were a type of law energy, and it was just that celestial phenomenon ascendants had no way to dig out its true might. He even thought that for those with powerful bloodlines, their bloodlines would also contain terrifying law energy. This law energy wouldn't appear when the bloodline holder was weak, but as the bloodline holder grew stronger, the law energy would grow stronger and stronger. This was the reason why the bloodlines of those with powerful bloodlines would constantly evolve and grow stronger. These 2 points were what Qin Wendian wanted to unearth. Other than this, many of the insights this immortal left behind were extremely useful to his own cultivation. Qin Wendian started to observe and comprehend the astral souls and bloodlines he had. After comprehending them in a cavern, he came back here again. He didn't care about the happenings in the outside world, and didn't fight, as though he stood aloof from worldly affairs. In the outside world, the flames of war had already ignited. There were many supreme geniuses clashing against each other, and all of them had comprehended different types of laws, causing their strength to grow stronger and stronger. However, Qin Wendian, who was cultivating alone, seemed to be completely unaware of all this. Today, Qin Wendian walked out of the cavern and sat on a stone platform outside. He was currently practicing his sword arts and bell arts, and would occasionally contemplate the heavens and earth, as though he was observing the law energy within the eastern sage cliff. Qin Wentian continued to comprehend and cultivate. Even his casual attacks grew stronger and stronger, but he was still immersed in his comprehension. After a very long time, the number of geniuses remaining in the eastern sage cliff grew fewer and fewer. Outside the eastern sage cliff, there were many experts from the Dongshengshan Gate gathered here, including many immortal kings. Those immortal kings from the 13 prefectures who led the geniuses here were all here. How many geniuses are there in the eastern sage cliff now? Someone asked. After which, an old guard at the side replied, there are currently over 3,000 participants. In about a month or two, this round of battles would conclude. It should be about there. I wonder what the average standard of the geniuses in this batch is. Someone spoke in a low voice. I'm not sure about the others, but those from the Eastern Prefecture are truly extremely powerful. Those from my Western Desert Prefecture are also very strong, much stronger compared to 100 years ago. An immortal king from the Western Desert Prefecture spoke. Hee, it's the same for our Underworld Prefecture as well. Everyone spoke. The Idle Cloud Immortal King from the Cloud Prefecture also laughed. There are also a few good seedlings in this batch of geniuses from our Cloud Prefecture. Cloud Prefecture, I don't think there's anyone from this prefecture who obtained the top 3 before. An Immortal King from the Blazing Sun Prefecture impolitely spoke, his words causing the Idle Cloud Immortal King to snort coldly, but he had no way to refute that. This was the truth. The immortal kings of the various prefectures would naturally be competing against each other in secret. That's true. I think there might be people from the Eastern Prefecture in this batch of geniuses, but there would also be people from our Western Desert Prefecture. Let's wait and see. After such a long time, we should have already discovered the 100 Immortals Forest. If we gather here earlier, this round of battles might end even faster and the elimination rate would be even faster. In fact, there might even be some extremely powerful characters who would be eliminated due to the competition. At the Eastern Sage Cliff, the 100 Immortals Forest was located in the central location. Over here, there were 360 immortal statues that contained terrifying immortal wills. Before each statue, there was a stone platform that could allow one to truly comprehend the immortals' might. At this moment, in the vast region of the 100 Immortals Forest, there were geniuses standing before each statue. If one paid close attention, they would discover that the higher the ranking of the geniuses, the closer they were to the statues. What was even more shocking was that right now in the region of the 100 Immortals Forest, corpses could be seen everywhere. Over 1,000 people had fallen here. The Eastern Sage Cliff was incomparably vast, but in this place alone, countless geniuses had fallen here. From this, one could very well imagine how intense the battles here were. And at this moment, a violent battle was also taking place in the 100 Immortals Forest. Scram! At this moment, a terrifying roar rang out. On the stone platform before one of the immortal statues, a towering battle was taking place. Jun Mengchen transformed into a war god, clad in a resplendent king armor. His attacks towered up into the sky, fighting against 3 powerful experts as a look of incomparable arrogance flickered in his eyes. After Jun Mengchen cultivated a lot of energy, he came to this 100 Immortals Forest and discovered that he could directly sense the tyrannical might of immortals through the statues here. In fact, he could even inherit immortal arts. This place was more suitable than any other place for cultivation. But as more and more geniuses discovered this place, the competition for positions started to erupt. The battles were incomparably intense. If they couldn't win, then they would have to fight against each other, wanting to kill each other. Chapter 828. There were a total of 360 immortal statues in the 100 Immortals Forest, but in the surroundings of this place, there were close to 1,000 people gathered here. When they glanced over, they saw that there were people cultivating in front of each immortal statue. They instantly understood that this place was an extremely good place for cultivation. How could they miss out on this opportunity? Hence, battles erupted unceasingly. There were also experts who comprehended the will of an immortal statue and continued forward, wanting to comprehend the will of a stronger immortal statue. The battles continued unceasingly, and for those who managed to occupy a position, they were all cultivating in the midst of the battles. In addition, once a battle broke out, it would be a slaughter, merciless and decisive. As for the reason, everyone understood. Nobody wanted to be constantly harassed. If they didn't want to be disturbed, there was only a single method: kill. Using the most domineering method to kill, killing so many that no one dared to covet the position. At the side, the geniuses were all guarding the area, searching for prey. If you weren't strong enough, there would be people coming to kill you. There were also experts who felt that their strength wasn't enough. They would immediately choose to leave, searching for other places to cultivate and only return after comprehending more power. In any case, this 100 Immortals forest became the most important place for the geniuses. The true battles would also start here. Some geniuses even understood that as long as they didn't come here, they would have a chance to enter the top 1,000. But if they missed this opportunity, it would be too much of a pity. Those truly capable geniuses all wanted to grow stronger. The top 1,000 positions were merely for outer sect disciples. There were still battles waiting for them at the back. Jun Mengchen seized an extremely powerful immortal statue. That statue exuded an incomparably tyrannical will of kings, as though it was an incomparably tyrannical battle king existence. Just a single glance was all it took for one to feel the sharpness of the statue. There were people who fought for it before, but all of them died in the hands of the powerful Jun Mengchen. Hence, the current situation was formed, 3 experts fighting against a single person. This person's bloodline is very powerful. Although he is young, he is extremely powerful. The spectators stared at Jun Mengchen as they silently mused in their hearts. Jun Mengchen was clad in king armor, and that was the pure might of his bloodline. His strength was terrifying, but right now, he was still in a disadvantageous position because he was fighting against 3 extremely powerful geniuses. Each of their attacks were tyrannical to the extreme, and when the 3 of them joined forces, it was already extremely rare for Jun Mengchen to be able to persist. From afar, a silhouette sped over with a speed as fast as lightning. This was a beautiful silhouette. She sped towards the direction of Jun Mengchen as she released her astral souls. A divine eagle manifested, radiating a divine light. She blasted out with her palms, causing a divine eagle to descend from the heavens, tearing apart everything. The terrifying illusory figure shot towards Jun Mengchen's 3 opponents. The countenance of one of them instantly changed. This was especially so when he saw the violet gold glow radiating from the newcomer. That person roared in rage as a demonic shadow manifested, clashing against the divine falcon. However, the demonic shadow was directly torn apart. The person who came was none other than Ziqing Xian. She didn't say a single word and directly engaged in combat. Bzz. That beautiful silhouette flickered. In an instant, there seemed to be a myriad of movements as numerous divine eagles lunged over. She just so happened to have comprehended an attack that was extremely suitable for her in the Eastern Sage Cliff. Very soon, that expert couldn't hold on any longer and was directly flung through the air with a thunderous boom. Jun Mengchen had one less person to deal with. He roared in madness as he spoke in arrogance, "Senior sister, you came at the right time." He who was fighting against 2 opponents actually managed to turn the situation around. His battle chi gushed forth as boundless destructive tempests ravaged the skies. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as the 2 opponents were flung through the air, coughing out fresh blood as their countenances paled. The 3 of them were all injured. They soon gathered together and stared at Jun Mengchen and Ziqing Xian as their expressions turned ashen. They didn't expect these 2 to be so powerful. The stone platforms here are all occupied. If we don't join forces, the chances of us obtaining them would be even slimmer. One of the 3 spoke as he stared at the crowd. There's only a single person on the stone platform. If we join forces, who would be the one occupying it? Someone spoke. Even if one occupied the stone platform, if one didn't have sufficient strength, how would they be able to defend it? Unless, One truly had strength that no one dared to covet. At this moment, the gazes of everyone turned to the front. Over there were a total of 18 stone platforms at the very front. These 18 stone platforms were actually the quietest, no one dared to disturb them. In front of one of the statues, Gusu Tianqi calmly stood there, exuding a formless pressure to the geniuses present. Just by looking at his back view, everyone could feel his aura. He was definitely an extremely terrifying character. As for the other statues, they were all supremely powerful existences, the top 3 rankers of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. Other than this, there were also many others who occupied the other immortal platforms behind them. They weren't in a hurry to clash with each other, they were waiting for the space in front of them to be emptied out. Very few people would dare to snatch those seats. Jun Mengchen's position was also very high up and was ranked second in the Cloud Prefecture. Nobody would dare to snatch his position so easily. However, this statue of his was extremely outstanding, and in addition to the fact that the fame of the geniuses of the Cloud Prefecture was relatively low, there were many geniuses who joined forces to snatch it. At this moment, a few silhouettes flashed over, directly surrounding Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian. Jun Mengchen stared at one of them. It was none other than Black Peak, whom he had met once in the inn back then. It's Black Peak, the disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King. As for the other 2, they are geniuses from the Eastern Prefecture and are very close to Black Peak. The expressions of the crowd stiffened when they saw this scene. The disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King, Black Peak, actually wanted to deal with these 2. Back then, when the sage child Yi Zishuan hosted the banquet, Yu and Qin Wentian were truly brazen. Black Peak stared at Jun Mengchen as he spoke. Only now did everyone know that this man was none other than the person who dared to oppose the sage child Yi Zishuan back then. Black Peak was the disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King. He would naturally have a good relationship with the sage child of the Dongshengshan Gate. I can help you guys to kill these 2. But this immortal foundation, you guys cannot possess it. Black Peak stared at the 3 injured geniuses. The expressions of the 3 of them stiffened as they nodded. Fine, we don't want it anymore. Scum, how shameless. Jun Mengchen spoke in disdain. Zi Qingxian furrowed her brows. Let's leave. Senior sister, if we meet these people in the later battles, we will definitely kill them. Jun Mengchen spoke in anger. Zi Qingxian nodded her head and the 2 of them soared up into the air. Facing so many geniuses, they knew it was impossible for them to contend against them. Hence, they could only choose to leave. Humph, Black Peak coldly snorted. Lifting his palm, he blasted out a scorching black palm imprint that was imbued with terrifying flames, containing a tyrannical destructive might. Scram! Jun Mengchen roared, causing the heavens and earth to tremble violently. He stretched out his palms and with a thunderous boom, the palm imprints had no way to block him. The others all launched their own attacks, yet Zi Qingxuan's silhouette flickered madly as numerous silhouettes rushed out in rage. They soared up into the air and soared into the skies, speeding towards the horizons. Black Peak floated in the air. Seeing how fast the 2 of them were, he knew it would be hard for him to catch up to them, and he didn't have time to waste. Hence, he ignored them and left the immortal foundation to his companions. As for Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian, the 2 of them flickered in the air. Jun Mengchen sighed in a depressed manner. Sadly, I can't unleash much of my strength in this place, or I would definitely be able to kill them all. Senior sister, I've implicated you. Don't worry about it. Zi Qingxian shook her head. Although she had a violet gold astral soul, she couldn't unleash all sorts of unique techniques. She felt that her strength was restricted and she couldn't unleash all of her advantages. I wonder how senior brother Qin is doing. I can sense that his comprehension abilities should be extremely high. After so many days, maybe he has already undergone a transformation. Jun Mengchen spoke in a low voice. Let's search for a better place to increase our strength. There are many good fortune in the Eastern Sage Cliff Range, let's not waste them. Zi Qingxian spoke. Jun Mengchen nodded his head as the 2 of them soared through the air. Senior sister. After some time, Jun Mengchen suddenly called out in joy. His gaze turned to a stone platform on an ancient peak below. In a place where no one was willing to enter, Qin Wentian was currently cultivating on the stone platform, unleashing his innate techniques unceasingly. Every attack he unleashed would give off a marvelous feeling, as though there was a unique sense of beauty within. Don't disturb him. Zi Qingshuan's heart trembled. She discovered that each and every action of Qin Wentian seemed to be a part of nature itself, as though he had entered into a marvelous state. His casual attacks were all extremely powerful, and this feeling of perfect harmony with the heavens and earth was extremely pleasing to the eyes. Why are you guys here? At this moment, Qin Wentian halted. He had already discovered the two of them in the air. His silhouette flickered, akin to a wind rock, transforming into a beam of light that instantly appeared in front of the two of them. Senior brother, have you been here all this while? Didn't you go to the 100 Immortals Forest? Jun Mengchen asked. I wandered around a few places before I finally arrived here. Where is the 100 Immortals Forest exactly? There's a total of 360 immortal statues in the 100 Immortals Forest, all of them contain powerful immortal wills. One can even cultivate immortal arts through the statues and obtain inheritances. The battles there never stopped and it's so embarrassing. I was blasted out and even implicated senior sister. Jun Mengchen unhappily spoke. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. Given Jun Mengchen's talent, it shouldn't be that bad, right? I went there earlier and only cultivated a single innate technique before I encountered the 100 Immortals Forest. I chose an immortal statue that was more suitable for me and started to comprehend my insights there. Hence, my combat prowess is on the weaker side. That's already not bad. The three of us were able to persist, and if it wasn't for Black Peak and the others ganging up on us, we wouldn't have to leave so easily. Zi Qingxian spoke, her words causing Qin Wentian to understand. After which, he spoke, let's go back. Kill our way back. Jun Mengchen's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Since there was a place like the 100 Immortals Forest, he naturally had to go and take a look. Also, that place should be the main battlefield of the Eastern Sage Cliff sect. Okay, let's move out immediately. Jun Mengchen's eyes gleamed with excitement. Zi Qingxian glanced at Qin Wentian. Although the three of them were very strong, she didn't know if they would be able to contend against so many enemies. But even if they were defeated, it wouldn't be a problem for them to protect themselves. Hence, she nodded her head and agreed to kill their way back. This junior apprentice brother of hers, although Jun Mengchen's talent was extremely good, his personality was a little too impatient. Compared to Qin Wentian, he lacked calmness. The feeling Qin Wentian gave her was that he had an extremely resolute temperament. He was able to calm down and restrain himself, yet his arrogance could also soar through the heavens. The longer she interacted with him, the more she felt he was extraordinary. Chapter 829. After the three of them spoke, they directly set off, heading towards the direction of the 100 Immortals Forest. In the 100 Immortals Forest, 360 immortal statues stood tall. The battles continued, and although the aftershocks from the battle affected the statues, these immortal statues were still able to stand tall. Each of them had a formless barrier of light around them, blocking the aftershocks from the battle. Not too long after, Qin Wentian, Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian returned. Their gazes swept through the vast 100 Immortals Forest as they continued to cultivate and battle. There were some demon-level geniuses in front of them, all of them had their eyes closed, nobody dared to disturb them. Senior brother, earlier I was cultivating in front of that immortal statue. Only to see Jun Mengchen lifting his finger and pointing to one of the statues. Qin Wentian's perception gushed over and he instantly sensed a King Dao battle intent radiating from this statue, incomparably sharp and extremely compatible with Jun Mengchen's cultivation. No wonder Jun Mengchen would choose this immortal statue. It was just that at this moment, the immortal statue was occupied by someone else. The person who occupied it was none other than the person by Black Peak's side, the person who wanted to kill Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian. This person's aura surged as he was extremely powerful. He was a heaven chosen of the Eastern Prefecture. Although Black Peak wasn't in the Eastern Prefecture with the Deep Flame Immortal King, the Deep Flame Immortal King's status in the Dongshengshan Gate was extraordinary. His influence was immense, and after Black Peak arrived, the Sage Child had already arranged a place for him to stay. Black Peak was acquainted with several heaven chosen of the Eastern Prefecture. The person who occupied the immortal statue of Jun Mengchen was also extremely powerful. His aura surged as a terrifying aura gushed forth from him. "What should we do?" Jun Mengchen asked. "Since Black Peak directly brought his men to kill the two of you, there's no need to care about the rules. Kill them all." Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness, while Jun Mengchen and Ziqingshuan's eyes gleamed with sharpness. After which, the three of them directly soared through the air with lightning speed, speeding towards the direction of the immortal statue. Everywhere they passed, the experts all opened their eyes and stared at the three of them warily. Cultivating in this place required extreme caution and vigilance against the attacks of others. Hence, the efficiency of comprehension was extremely low. But there was no helping it. The will contained within the statue was truly powerful, and it could directly inherit the might of an immortal. Soon, the cultivator who occupied Jun Mengchen seemed to have sensed a cold murderous intent sweeping towards him. He stopped cultivating and opened his eyes. His body radiated with a sharp aura as he turned around and looked at the sky. A terrifying aura swept out. Bzzz. The raging winds howled as a wind rock appeared in the air. This wind rock's entire body was extremely sharp, like an invincible sword. He lifted his hand and a terrifying beam of sword light shot out. This sword seemed to contain a special might as it swept through the air, enveloping everything in its path, completely sealing off the movements of that expert. There were no blind spots at all. "Impudent!" That person roared, punching out with both his fists, causing the space to tremble and the sword chi to shatter. However, Qin Wentian's first attack wasn't for the sake of killing, it was only for the sake of sealing off his movements. In that short instant, the three of them descended from three different directions. Boom! The terrifying ancient bells directly shook the heavens and the earth, causing the man's body to tremble violently. The sound of the bells seemed to be filled with a terrifying murderous might, transforming into destructive golden lightning that smashed everything, causing the man to groan in pain. His body was paralyzed, and he trembled all over. After which, Jun Mengchen roared in madness. A spatial tempest gushed forth, and that person was like a rootless duckweed, drifting away with the wind. The divine falcon shone with a resplendent brilliance, tearing apart everything. It swooped down and tore the body of that person into pieces, causing fresh blood to splatter everywhere. In just an instant, a genius of the Eastern Prefecture died, killed on the spot. This scene caused the surrounding people to be horrified, and their hearts trembled. Such a tyrannical strike was terrifying to the extreme, there was basically no way for the opponent to escape. In that instant earlier, it was as though they could see the despair of a genius before his death. It was as though they didn't dare to believe that they would be killed in such a short amount of time. If he knew about this earlier, would he regret following Black Peak to force Jun Mengchen and Ziqingshan away? Who would have thought that Jun Mengchen and Ziqingshan would be back so soon? Back then, they ganged up on Jun Mengchen, and now, Jun Mengchen and Ziqingshan weren't polite at all, directly ganging up on Jun Mengchen and Ziqingshan, not giving them any chance at all. As expected, the remaining people were even more dangerous. If you offended them and didn't kill them, you would only be leaving behind future troubles for yourself. The consequences would be extremely severe. A terrifying killing intent erupted forth. A few silhouettes stepped out from the front. These were none other than Black Peak and his other two friends. The three of them each occupied an immortal seat and were all extremely powerful geniuses. At this moment, after Qin Wentian and the other two killed one of their opponents, they all turned and stared at Black Peak and his two friends. Their countenances were all filled with sharpness and sharpness. The gazes of the six experts clashed as a violent current of qi churned in the air. A cold killing intent gushed forth in all directions, as though a great battle was about to erupt. Such actions. You are truly despicable. Are you even fit to stand here? Blackpeak's countenance was ice cold. That person was his friend. Not long ago, he led this person to chase away Jun Mengchen. But in the blink of an eye, he was surrounded and killed by his opponents. From this, one could very well imagine how terrible his mood was right now. Are you even qualified to say such words? Qin Wentian arrogantly spoke. Now that it's 3 against 3, it's just nice. Qin Wentian's countenance was filled with provocation. That cold arrogance in his eyes was filled with disdain. Blackpeak's eyes turned black as an extremely dangerous aura gushed forth from him. Who wants to play with you guys? Blackpeak's eyes turned to the back of Qin Wentian and his group. The other 3 who participated in the encirclement against Jun Mengchen also walked over. The 6 of them surrounded Qin Wentian and Blackpeak spoke, since you guys are so despicable, just leave your lives behind. I will kill all of you. Other than Blackpeak, there were a few others who were watching the show. Jun Mengchen was none other than the person whom Sage Child Yi Zixuan didn't invite back then. Qin Wentian was none other than the genius who killed Yi Zixuan's subordinates. Now that the 3 of them gathered here for revenge, how could Blackpeak spare them? The 6 of them released their constellations at the same time, only to hear Qin Wentian speaking, Mengchen, Qingxian, let's kill them directly. As the sound of his voice faded, the 3 of them released their astral souls at the same time. A violet gold light shone resplendently, illuminating the entire space, causing the hearts of the geniuses to tremble. Celestial phenomenon ascendants with violet gold astral souls were 1 in a trillion. The 3 of them before them were all violet gold in color. The 3 of them stood side by side, the violet gold light from them intertwining together, resembling 3 gods of war, giving off a feeling of invincibility. Die! Blackpeak coldly spoke. Momentarily, the 6 geniuses all unleashed their terrifying might as they rushed over. Boom! The violet gold light shone resplendently as the chimes of bells rang out. Qin Wentian directly rushed into the center of the attacks of the 6. His body erupted with a dazzling light and in an instant, numerous gigantic ancient bells appeared, blasting out in all directions. The tribulation light was terrifying to the extreme and in the air, a gigantic ancient bell floated there, blocking the attacks of the 6 geniuses. Jun Mengchen roared in rage. Clad in his king armor, he transformed into a war king. With a thunderous roar, he dashed towards one of the 6. Zi Qingxian cooperated with him, transforming into a divine hawk as she sped over with lightning speed. The 2 beside that person instantly tried to rescue him, rushing towards Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian. But at this moment, Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian directly rushed towards the 2 who blocked their attacks while Qin Wentian transformed into a wind rock, rushing towards that person. Lifting his palms, numerous violet gold ancient bells emitted a humming sound that shook the heavens and earth, causing the body of that person to tremble violently. He felt his soul trembling as his countenance turned even paler. Each of the ancient bells seemed to contain a tyrannical innate technique. However, how could Qin Wentian unleash so many of them at the same time? In just an instant, the ancient bells directly slammed into that person. The powerful tribulation energy penetrated through his body, instantly killing him. At this moment, the other 3 also arrived. However, Qin Wentian didn't even bother to glance at them. With a wave of his hands, the boundless violet gold ancient bells enveloped the entire sky, rumbling unceasingly, akin to the sound of destruction. Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian were both suppressing their opponents. This was especially so for the infuriated Jun Mengchen. He roared unceasingly as boundless resplendent light radiated from him. The humiliation he felt earlier had completely transformed into the flames of anger. Each and every one of his attacks shook the heavens and earth, akin to an unstoppable war god. His opponents had no way to defend against him. Die! Accompanied by a thunderous boom, Jun Mengchen's attacks directly killed one of the 3 geniuses who were ganging up on him. As for Blackpeak and the other 2, they had yet to break through Qin Wentian's defenses. The ancient bells revolved around him, and a violet gold astral soul shrouded him. Every time Qin Wentian attacked, his opponents would feel a sense of impending death. Black Peak and the other two actually didn't dare to take the risk and engage in close combat. The eyes of the spectators narrowed when they saw this scene. They were all shocked by how powerful these three were. Out of the 6 geniuses, 2 of them died in the blink of an eye. Not only that, after Jun Mengchen killed his opponent, he immediately went to Ziqingshuan's side. In just an instant, the 2 of them joined forces and killed their opponent, who was already in a precarious situation. The situation of 6 against 3 had turned into a situation of 3 against 3 in less than a moment. The 3 geniuses who came over were like sending themselves to their deaths. They didn't have any effect at all. Upon seeing Jun Mengchen and Ziqingxian rushing over, Black Peak and the other 2 retreated, halting their attacks. Their countenances were extremely heavy as they stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. What good fortune did this young man obtain? The ancient bell innate technique he cultivated was clearly much stronger compared to the innate techniques of others. Every ancient bell he blasted out contained a mysterious energy, and he could even summon multiple ancient bells from his body with a single strike. In the Eastern Sage Cliff, such combat prowess was simply too shocking. Only a rare few would be able to contend against him. If this was the case, in addition to Jun Mengchen and Ziqingxian, not only would the 3 of them have no way to win, they would also be in an extremely dangerous situation. Before this, Qin Wentian alone was able to defend against the attacks of the 3 of them. How could they continue fighting? Chapter 830. Awesome. Jun Mengchen's battle-intense sword. Although he had deep foundations, he had no way to unleash his full strength due to the restrictions of this place. Also, he had arrived at the Eastern Sage Cliff a long time ago and had never left. He only cultivated a single type of innate technique to deal with these people, relying on his tyrannical astral souls as well as his bloodline power. But when he was surrounded, he was completely suppressed, causing him to feel extremely stifled. In fact, even his immortal seat was snatched away by others. When had he ever felt so stifled before? Right now, Qin Wentian, Ziqingxian and him once again slaughtered their way over. 3 violet gold astral souls. In addition to Qin Wentian's supreme comprehension ability, they were able to kill 3 people in the blink of an eye. It was truly exhilarating. Senior brother Qin's comprehension abilities are truly extraordinary. His understanding of innate techniques far surpasses me. I feel that each and every one of his attacks are incomparably profound, as though they were formed by the heavens. It's so comfortable just looking at them. Also, I feel that senior brother Qin still has some strength that he has yet to unleash. Just like me, we have a chance to obtain 2 positions in the Heavenly Talisman Realms examination this time around. Jun Mengchen mused. He trusted Qin Wentian very much and was also very confident in himself. Even if he suffered some setbacks here and felt extremely sullen, it wouldn't affect his confidence. Black Peak stared at the 3 of them. His Annihilation Abyss astral soul contained a terrifying devouring energy. Strands of blood-colored light permeated the skies, transforming into blood-colored abyssal devil flames. At this moment, the destructive energy radiating from him had reached a terrifying degree. His eyes seemed to have sunken in, replaced by a pair of abyssal devil flames. When he stared at Qin Wentian and the 2 others, his terrifying eyes seemed to want to devour the perception of the 3 of them. When Qin Wentian unleashed his sharpness, how could Black Peak be willing to remain silent? He released his terrifying astral souls to the extreme, as well as the power of his bloodline power. Black Peak is so powerful. No wonder the Deep Flame Immortal King would choose to accept him as a disciple. The feeling he gives off is too terrifying. The surrounding geniuses were all trembling in their hearts. Evidently, Black Peak was thoroughly enraged at this moment. He was truly enraged in this battle. Originally, I had never thought of playing with you guys seriously. However, since the 3 of you are so arrogant and want to rely on your meager strength to display yourselves by slaughtering others, I will have you use your lives to pay tribute to your arrogance. Black Peak's gaze was extremely terrifying. His voice seemed to possess a mysterious magical power, causing everyone to feel how dangerous he was at this moment. Mengchen, Qingxian, there shouldn't be any pressure for the two of you to kill one each, right? Qin Wendian said. His voice was light and calm, but when he said it at this moment, it made people's hearts tremble. It was as though Qin Wendian didn't place Black Peak's threat in his eyes at all. It was as though at this moment, Black Peak, who was as powerful as the sovereign king of destruction, wasn't a threat to him at all. That casual voice of his contained disregard. What sort of arrogance and confidence was behind it? Black Peak, the personal disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King. His words seemed to have fallen into a bottomless abyss. His three fellow apprentices didn't seem to care at all. I also wish to test myself against this arrogant fellow. But since senior brother wants to fight, I won't compete with him. As for the other two, I guarantee I won't let any of them leave this place alive. Jun Mengchen spoke with cold arrogance. Leave it to us. Zi Qingxian simply replied, her voice filled with confidence. This caused Black Peak's expression to turn extremely unsightly to behold. The abyss of destruction around him howled unceasingly, as though it could no longer suppress the destructive energy contained within, wanting to devour his opponent. The two of you, hold on a little longer. Black Peak spoke. After that, he stepped out as the abyss of destruction howled, wanting to devour Qin Wendian. A terrifying destructive tempest manifested, containing the power to devour the heavens and earth. Black Peak punched out, the abyss of destruction fused into his fist, wanting to devour everything. Your astral souls aren't worthy enough to contend against me. Qin Wendian's voice was cold. His violet gold suppressive astral soul radiated a dazzling light as numerous illusory figures appeared. Behind him, the violet gold suppressive body stood there, unmoving. That terrifying devouring energy had no way to get close to it. Qin Wendian casually punched out. This punch was like a silhouette manifesting, directly suppressing Black Peak's abyss of destruction. Roar, roar. Roars of rage rang out. The abyss of destruction in the air gushed towards Qin Wendian as a gigantic black hole appeared in the air. A blood-colored light shone within, exuding a fearsome might. However, Qin Wendian stepped out. His suppression astral soul shone with a boundless divine light, fearless of everything, clashing head-on with the abyss of destruction. Die! When Black Peak saw that his astral souls and bloodline power had no way to destroy Qin Wendian, he was even more enraged. Both his fists punched out frenziedly, causing chaos to erupt in the air as the devouring abyss manifested, transforming into the maw of a malevolent demonic beast. Qin Wendian blasted out with his palms as numerous ancient bells manifested. The chimes of the bells rang out unceasingly, shattering all of Black Peak's attacks. It was like no matter how Black Peak attacked, he would still be able to deal with them with indifference. Both of them are so powerful. This man is ranked number 27 in the Cloud Prefecture, but the combat prowess he gained from the Eastern Sage Cliff Range isn't inferior to Black Peak at all. Not only that, he also has a violet gold astral soul. He's an extremely dangerous character. Someone mused silently. However, Qin Wendian continued to advance, ignoring Black Peak's attacks. The chimes of the ancient bells rang out unceasingly, reverberating through the air. In a short instant, countless ancient bells manifested, devouring the energy of Black Peak's cultivation art. Even when Black Peak unleashed his bloodline power, the spectators could still clearly see him retreating unceasingly, while Qin Wendian continued advancing. At this instant, the numerous ancient bells floated before Qin Wendian, revolving frenziedly. Qin Wendian's palms trembled as the ancient bells converged together into an incomparably gigantic calamity annihilation ancient bell that blasted out. Black Peak roared in rage when he sensed the tyrannical might contained within. Both his hands were covered in terrifying abyssal flames as he abruptly pushed them out. Humph, Qin Wendian coldly snorted, filled with disdain. He lifted the ancient bell in his hand and advanced forward with a speed as fast as lightning. Everywhere he passed by, everything was destroyed. There was no energy that could block him at all. When the terrifying abyss of destruction slammed into him, it directly shattered apart. Boom! When the abyssal devil flames blasted out by Black Peak came into contact with the ancient bell, the violent abyssal devil flames became agitated. However, the abyssal devil flames were unceasingly shattered and extinguished bit by bit. However, the ancient bell was still radiating boundless calamity light and terrifying suppressive energy. Black Peak's astral souls howled in rage. Both his palms manifested a towering abyss of annihilation as he directly blasted it towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian didn't seem to mind at all. He directly pushed the ancient bell downwards, causing the sounds of the bell to ring out unceasingly. The abyss of annihilation was corroded by the boundless calamity light as it was suppressed by the suppressive might. Black Peak groaned in misery as his countenance turned incredibly unsightly. He felt as though his soul was about to be destroyed by the sound of the bell. He abruptly blasted out with his palms, borrowing the power of the rebound force to retreat with explosive speed. However, he felt his vision blur as he blasted out his palms. It was as though he had to endure the suppressive might of the ancient bell as well. Bzzz. Qin Wentian was like a gust of wind, chasing after Black Peak with the ancient bell in his hands. Just like that, he destroyed everything. Black Peak's countenance was incredibly ugly to behold. He gathered his strength and blasted out, yet his attack was destroyed once again. Boom! Qin Wentian's silhouette descended as the ancient bell slammed into Black Peak's body once more. Black Peak groaned in misery as blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Qin Wentian was like a god of death, relentlessly chasing after him. The light from the ancient bell dimmed before it once again shone with a resplendent radiance, as though it would never be extinguished. The spectators were all dumbfounded. Qin Wentian only used a single attack, yet it caused Black Peak's astral soul to grow dimmer and dimmer as he repeatedly coughed out fresh blood. Boom, boom. The bell chime seemed to have a unique rhythm to it. The ancient bell wouldn't be extinguished, destroying Black Peak's body time and time again, as well as his will. The eyes of the silhouette that was pushing the ancient bell were as cold as ever, devoid of emotions. Yet for some unknown reason, it caused people to feel a chill down their spines. Such an attack was akin to destroying Black Peak, humiliating him. Just a single attack from me is enough to make you unable to defend against it. How can you still fight against me? Indeed, Black Peak had already unleashed all of his techniques, yet he still couldn't break through Qin Wentian's attacks. His injuries continued to worsen, but the thing that was suffering the most was his arrogant heart. Don't you want our lives? Is that it? Qin Wentian coldly spat out as he attacked, causing Black Peak to cough out another mouthful of blood. Now that this sentence was spoken by Qin Wentian, how ironic was it? It was like a slap to his face. Do you really think you can win for sure? Black Peak howled in rage. Boundless devilish flames erupted from his body, wanting to devour him whole, transforming him into an abyss. I want you to die without a burial ground. Accompanied by a terrifying howl, Black Peak's entire person fused together with the abyss. He no longer retreated, but instead lunged towards Qin Wentian, wanting to devour the ancient bell as well as Qin Wentian. You forced me to do this. An extremely cold voice rang out. The abyss had already devoured Qin Wentian, causing the crowd to tremble. Black Peak was at an absolute disadvantage, yet he was still able to counterattack, erupting forth with such terrifying destructive might. How terrifying! Senior brother. Jun Mengchen's countenance stiffened. At this moment, boundless violet golden light radiated from the abyss. Within the terrifying abyss, Qin Wentian sat cross-legged within an incomparably gigantic bell. He lifted his hands, causing the bell chimes to ring out unceasingly, tearing the abyss apart bit by bit. At this instant, Black Peak's countenance contorted as a powerful beam of light erupted forth. With a thunderous boom, the abyss shattered apart as Black Peak's body reappeared. However, his body was so badly battered that it seemed as though it was about to shatter. Fresh blood gushed out from him. Just this little bit of strength? Qin Wentian floated in the air once more as he spoke. I'm afraid the disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King will die here today. Chapter 831. How powerful! Qin Wentian's voice drifted into the ears of everyone, causing their hearts to tremble. Could it be that Qin Wentian really dared to kill Black Peak? Although the two of them had a conflict, who was Black Peak? He was the personal disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King. What sort of character was the Deep Flame Immortal King? He was a capable war general of the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor and was highly regarded by the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor. His influence in the Dongshengshan Gate was also extremely high and his status was extremely high. The reason why they came to participate in this grand event was firstly to temper themselves and raise their strength. Secondly, they wanted to join the Dongshengshan Gate and become a core disciple. However, if Qin Wentian killed Black Peak, wouldn't that be equivalent to smacking the face of the Deep Flame Immortal King? Even if he really managed to enter the Dongshengshan Gate, he would definitely be in an extremely miserable state. Black Peak didn't think so much. Right now, he only felt humiliation. Even after using his strongest technique, he was still unable to kill Qin Wentian and was heavily injured instead. To him now, it was basically impossible for him to win against this person before him. How hateful! Black Peak roared in his heart. He had a body full of strength and had cultivated many tyrannical immortal arts from his master. But under the restrictions of this place, he was completely useless. Even if he was the personal disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King, he was no different from the others in the Eastern Sage Cliff Range. His strength was greatly restricted while Qin Wentian's luck seemed to be very good. He had cultivated an extremely powerful innate technique which allowed him to have an extremely high combat prowess. Such a battle was destined for him to lose. Black Peak was filled with reluctance in his heart, but his face had already been thrown away for sure. In the following battles, you will definitely die extremely miserably. Black Peak roared in rage. After which, boundless abyssal devil flames erupted from his body and gushed towards Qin Wentian. Streams of black smoke drifted in different directions and Black Peak himself also transformed into a wisp of black smoke, finally admitting defeat here and was actually preparing to flee. What a joke! Qin Wentian snorted. Boundless light from the law diagram in the air flowed into Qin Wentian's body. He transformed into a wind rock, riding on the wind. Both his palms trembled as countless ancient bells blotted out the sky, raining down from the heavens, wanting to destroy everything. Popping sounds rang out unceasingly as the black fog was directly dissipated. In just an instant, Qin Wentian's gaze locked onto a black fog that was fleeing into the distance. Buzz! Qin Wentian, who had transformed into a wind rock, resembled the true wind rock great saint. His figure flickered through the air, and in a short instant, he had already caught up to Black Peak. After that, the crowd only heard a blood-curdling scream that caused their hearts to tremble. You are courting death. Black Peak roared in rage. Boom! A terrifying bell chime rang out, accompanied by Black Peak's screams of agony. It was as though he had been tortured to the extreme. The gazes of the crowd pierced through the air, only to see that over there, Black Peak's body had already fallen to the ground. Qin Wentian held the ancient bell in his hand and directly pressed it down on Black Peak's body. Qin Wentian's foot stepped on Black Peak's body as he coldly stared at him. Arg! Black Peak's eyes were as dark as the abyss. He howled as his aura gushed forth explosively. However, Qin Wentian's countenance didn't change. He directly slammed his palms onto the ancient bell, causing it to ring out once more. Black Peak violently coughed out blood, his countenance was completely drained as his aura grew increasingly weak. Back then in the Immortal Palace, you already didn't have the qualifications to be so arrogant in front of me. Although you are a disciple of the Deep Flame sect, so what? With the same conditions, I can easily suppress you. Qin Wentian stared at Black Peak as he emotionlessly spoke. Black Peak's body trembled, he stared at Qin Wentian, regardless of whether you kill me or not, this tempering exercise will be your doomsday. How regretful, this place has greatly restricted me. If not, you will soon see the disparity between us. Oh. Qin Wentian coldly laughed as he stared at Black Peak. Do you know why I haven't killed you yet? Black Peak's countenance stiffened as he stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, did he not dare to do so? This man had once publicly rejected the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor. Given his personality, there shouldn't be anything he wouldn't dare to do. In addition, right now, Qin Wentian's life was already in his hands, he could kill him any time he wanted. Why was he still wasting his breath? Because in my eyes, you are basically nothing. Whether I kill you or not, there's no meaning to me. If it wasn't for you taking the initiative to provoke me, I wouldn't even bother to deal with you. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as the gigantic ancient bell directly shattered into pieces. The sound of the bell chimes caused Black Peak to violently cough out a mouthful of fresh blood. Only to see Qin Wentian turning and walking away, he didn't kill Black Peak. It was like he truly didn't care about Black Peak's life at all. I still remember back then, the Deep Flame Immortal King didn't like me no matter how much he looked at me. Since you are the disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King, I will spare you from death. I only hope that you won't disappoint me too much in the future. If not, the Deep Flame Immortal King's face wouldn't look good. Qin Wentian's voice directly rang out in Black Peak's mind, filled with absolute coldness and arrogance. He didn't kill Black Peak because he felt disdain. He gave Black Peak a chance because he wanted to show the Deep Flame Immortal King. Oh yeah, it's best if you don't get killed by others. If not, you wouldn't even have the qualifications to advance to the next round. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over as he spoke. His eyes were filled with a piercing pain as he stared at Black Peak. Qin Wentian sparing his life was even more unbearable than killing him. Such humiliation pierced deeply into his arrogant heart. The personal disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King, a war general under the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor. He who was originally a supreme genius actually needed someone to spare him from death, taking pity on him and sparing his life, all for the sake of humiliating him in front of his master. What level of contempt was this? What level of humiliation was this? It caused his entire body to convulse and tremble. In the 100 Immortals Forest, several geniuses were paying attention to the battle between Qin Wentian and Black Peak. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's return, all of them cast a deep glance at Qin Wentian. This man was truly extraordinary, even someone as powerful as Black Peak was suppressed by him. Black Peak didn't even have the strength to flee and was almost killed by him. If it wasn't for the fact that Black Peak was the personal disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King, Qin Wentian of the Cloud Prefecture would definitely kill Black Peak on the spot. However, this place was still the Dongshengshan Gate after all. Black Peak's status was somewhat transcendent. Although he wasn't an official disciple of the Dongshengshan Gate, since he was accepted as a personal disciple of the Deep Flame Immortal King, he could already be considered a member of the Dongshengshan Gate. For this selection test, he was merely here to temper himself. Qin Wentian didn't dare to kill him in the end, but even so, humiliating Black Peak like this was already extremely audacious. They had no idea why Qin Wentian would spare Black Peak, they only thought that Qin Wentian wouldn't dare to kill him. In addition, Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian had already concluded their battles, killing their opponents. The three of them were completely unscathed, and out of the 6 geniuses, only Black Peak was still alive. Not only that, it was Qin Wentian who spared his life. If not, Black Peak would have died as well. These 3 fellow apprentices are all extraordinary, we mustn't antagonize them easily. Those in the surroundings silently mused. At this moment, there was no one occupying the immortal statue that radiated a towering battle chi. Nobody dared to snatch it anymore. Before this, when Black Peak tried to snatch it, he was already in such a miserable state. It was impossible for ordinary people to win against him. Mengchen, you can focus on your cultivation now. Qin Wentian spoke to Jun Mengchen. Emicham, I've finally vented my anger. Senior, do you have any immortal statues that you fancy? We can directly snatch them. Jun Mengchen spoke, his words causing the hearts of those who occupied the immortal statues to tremble as they stared at the 3 of them with wariness in their eyes. If the 3 of them really joined forces to snatch the immortal statues, it would truly be hard for them to resist. There's no need. In the Eastern Sage Cliff Refinement Grounds, everyone has to depend on their own strength. If it wasn't for the fact that there were people who joined forces to deal with you, I wouldn't have acted. But since this matter has already been resolved, if Qing Xian and I want to compete for the immortal statues, we will naturally have to depend on our own strength. Qin Wendian shook his head. Jun Mengchen nodded, okay then, I will go and cultivate then. After speaking, Jun Mengchen's silhouette flickered as he directly appeared before the immortal statue and silently contemplated. No one dared to disturb him again. Qin Wendian slowly walked through the 100 Immortals forest, passing by numerous immortal statues. Occasionally, he would stop and continue on his way. Every time he stopped, the people around him would instantly feel a sense of wariness in their hearts as they stared coldly at him. Not too long after, Qin Wendian had already strolled through the entire 100 Immortals forest. He discovered that the closer he got to the immortal statues, the stronger the immortal might radiating from them. The 18 immortal statues at the very front had the most tyrannical auras, and each of them represented an immortal. Their cultivation bases were different, hence the might contained within the immortal statues were different as well. The strolling Qin Wendian finally halted his steps, stopping in front of one of the 18 immortal statues at the very front. However, these 18 immortal statues were still immersed in their cultivation, as though they didn't know of Qin Wendian's existence. Even when Qin Wendian fought against Black Peak earlier, they didn't even bother to look at it. They were completely immersed in their own insights and nobody would be able to disturb them. This was also a form of self-confidence. The medallions on their chests indicated that all of them were ranked within the top 3 of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. Gusu Tianqi was also here. The immortal statues behind them were all ranked at the very top. However, none of them fought against the 18 immortal statues at the very front. All of them understood that if they fought against each other, the victor would be unknown. Hence, they might as well strengthen themselves first and wait for an empty spot to appear before taking another step forward. Only to see that at this moment, Gusu Tianqi's eyes opened as he stared at the immortal statue before him. After which, he bowed slightly and soared up into the air, continuing to search for other good fortune. Among the 360 immortal statues here, he chose one for himself. He wasn't greedy and wouldn't take the initiative to fight against others. Because to him, there was no need for him to do so. His goal was only to become the top ranker. In the Eastern Sage Cliff, no one dared to take the initiative to challenge him. He only had a single purpose in the Eastern Sage Cliff, and that was to constantly search for good fortune to improve himself. As Gusu Tianqi soared up into the air, one of the 18 immortal statues at the very front appeared. The eyes of the geniuses behind him all opened as their eyes gleamed with a resplendent light. They were all staring at that immortal statue, yet not a single one of them ascended it. They all understood that this immortal statue wasn't a place that just anyone could ascend. But at this moment, they saw a figure leisurely walking towards the immortal statue, causing the gazes of everyone to freeze. After that, they only saw the silhouette of this young man casually ascending the immortal statue. Chapter 832. After Gusu Tianqi left, the immortal statue he left behind stood at the very front. When he left, the crowd didn't rush towards him like how they did when the other immortal statues appeared. Nobody moved at all. Because, the immortal statue at the very front was the one everyone was staring at. Behind the 18 statues, countless gazes were fixed on it, including those ranked at the very top. Even for them, they didn't dare to casually step on it because they understood that at this moment, if someone stepped on it, that person would definitely become the target of everyone else. But at this moment, a figure walked up as though nothing had happened, ignoring the gazes of the crowd. This young man was as calm as the clouds and wind. Was this confidence or was it because he was ignorant? Numerous gazes landed on Qin Wendian. At this instant, Qin Wendian could clearly sense many pairs of eyes staring at him. However, in this place, there were 18 statues. If the others could occupy one of them, why couldn't he? If there was someone who wanted to provoke him, he would tell everyone that rather than provoking him, Qin Wendian, they might as well look for the other 17 geniuses. Within the Eastern Sage Cliff, astral energy flowed endlessly, never stopping. Who else would have an advantage compared to him who cultivated the spiritual refinement method? He had comprehended the Calamity Annihilation Ancient Bell for a very long time and was already able to instantly condense the divine energy within it. Hence, with a single attack of his, he could blast out countless ancient bells with shocking might, domineeringly suppressing Black Peak. Even when someone as powerful as Black Peak unleashed all sorts of attacks, it was all useless. Qin Wentian stared at the immortal statue before him. When he observed it from the side, he could feel a powerful battle intent radiating from it. However, there was nothing special about it. Yet, Qin Wentian could faintly sense that there was something within this immortal statue that attracted him. But when he personally sat on the immortal seat and stared at the statue, at this instant, the eyes of the statue seemed to come into contact with him. That pair of eyes that were as boundless as the starry skies seemed to contain an incomparably terrifying will. In just an instant, Qin Wentian's eyes seemed to have fallen into a trance as his will and perception were all devoured. He only felt a towering will appearing in front of him. This statue seemed to have transformed into a supreme character that stood in front of him, exuding a battle might that caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. Qin Wentian only felt that his will was about to be devoured by this will. In front of this statue, he was actually so tiny and inconsequential. Boom! Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently as his will struggled to break free. In just an instant, he felt cold sweat dripping down his back. Glancing to his left and right, the other 17 statues were still in their cultivation, completely immersed. Did they really not care about the attacks of others? Or could it be that in front of these statues, once they entered a state, it would be extremely difficult for them to be distracted? This statue seems to contain an extremely powerful will of battle. In addition, there seems to be a mysterious energy within. Qin Wentian silently mused. At this moment, someone spoke. "You are standing there, yet you seem so calm and composed." This voice drifted over from behind Qin Wentian. His indifferent tone contained hints of mockery. As one of the top 5 geniuses of the Qian prefecture, it was very hard for him to imagine that this person ranked number 27 of the Cloud prefecture would actually dare to walk up to the statue that Gusu Tianqi left behind. Not only that, when facing the gazes of the crowd, it was as though he didn't care at all. He was so calm and composed. "If anyone wants it, come and take it." Qin Wentian didn't turn his head and directly spoke. That indifferent tone of his didn't seem to be spoken out of arrogance, but rather, it was because of his confidence in his own strength. "What do everyone think?" The person who spoke earlier coldly laughed as he stared at the surroundings. Many people were staring at Qin Wentian, all of them wanted that statue. That was the place where Gusu Tianqi cultivated before. Not only that, Gusu Tianqi only comprehended a single statue before he left. What else can we think? Naturally, whoever is stronger will be the one to snatch it. A voice rang out. This person who spoke was also one of the top rankers, an expert from the Western Desert Prefecture. He had a muscular physique and was about 3 meters tall. His skin glowed with a green light and his features were extremely ugly, resembling a monster. There were many different races in the Western Desert Prefecture, and there were all kinds of wuxiu. There were monks like Sarolus, and there were also giants with gigantic physiques. They were born with the bloodline of giants, and their physiques were extremely huge. This ugly genius was a genius from one of the strongest tribes in the Western Desert Prefecture. Boom! As the sound of his voice faded, his body directly dashed out. Although his physique was huge, his movements were extremely agile. His gigantic body transformed into a beam of green light that shot towards Qin Wentian. Not only that, his entire body seemed to be filled with an incomparably terrifying explosive might. His arms blasted out as they expanded explosively, bringing with them a fearsome might that caused the air to whistle. That fearsome might directly shot towards Qin Wentian, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Qin Wentian stood at his original location, he didn't even bother to turn his body. With a backhand, the Calamity Annihilation Ancient Bell appeared, unceasingly slamming into that terrifying arm, directly shattering it. However, that genius wasn't injured in the slightest. His arm reverted back to its normal size as he floated in the air, staring at the back of Qin Wentian. Arrogant! That ugly giant roared in rage as 8 arms grew out from his body. Swishing sounds rang out as each of his arms expanded explosively. All of them grabbed towards Qin Wentian, terrifying to the extreme. Qin Wentian turned and with a step, he directly floated in the air. Both of his arms blasted out unceasingly as the bell chimes rang out unceasingly. In just an instant, the entire space was filled with the Calamity Annihilation Ancient Bell, revolving around Qin Wentian, unceasingly blasting out. Destructive might shook this entire space, and the 8 arms of the ugly giant were soon shattered. The hearts of the spectators trembled when they saw the Calamity Annihilation Ancient Bell in the air. After that, they only saw Qin Wentian waving his hands as a violet gold astral soul gushed forth, causing an oppressive pressure to permeate this entire space. Go! Qin Wentian coldly spoke. At this moment, the movements of his palms seemed to contain a mystical rhythm. Countless ancient bells converged together, transforming into a terrifying Calamity Annihilation Ancient Bell. It was over 100 meters tall and directly blasted out. This bell was even larger compared to the one he used to deal with Blackpeak earlier. This ancient bell was manifested from countless smaller bells that revolved around it. The bell chimes shook the heavens and earth as beams of golden light unceasingly blasted onto the body of the ugly giant. The giant roared in rage as a 3-headed and 6-armed form manifested. Qin Wentian blasted out once more as the gigantic bell of destruction blasted downwards. The destructive light from the bell directly destroyed everything in its path. That ugly giant screamed in pain as he clutched his head with both hands. Boom! The gigantic bell slammed down as the body of the ugly giant directly exploded. He had no strength to resist at all. The terrifying bell of destruction continued to descend. Qin Wentian coldly swept his gaze over everyone as he spoke. If everyone feels that I, Qin, am a pushover, feel free to come at me. But if anyone dares to disturb my cultivation, I will kill them all without mercy, just like what happened earlier. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian waved his hands as the bell chimes reverberated through the air. The gigantic bell dissipated as Qin Wentian turned and stared at the statue. It was as though he had forgotten about the cold gazes in the surroundings. He used this battle to tell everyone that since the 17 experts beside him could sit stably in front of the statue, he, Qin Wentian, could do the same as well. If anyone dares to seize the throne, he would kill them all without mercy. Only then would he be able to intimidate everyone. Hence, Qin Wentian wasn't polite at all and directly used tyrannical methods to attack. The impact was even greater compared to when he fought against Blackpeak. Many of the spectators had already witnessed the battle between Qin Wentian and Blackpeak. Right now, when they saw Qin Wentian's domineering attacks, they couldn't help but to sigh in their hearts. Within the Eastern Sage Cliff, given Qin Wentian's strength, he could be ranked at the very top. This man was someone they couldn't afford to antagonize. Those geniuses at the front all had cold gazes that flickered unceasingly as they stared at Qin Wentian. It was as though they were contemplating Qin Wentian's strength. Would they be able to deal with him or not? A violet gold astral soul, a tyrannical attack type innate technique. Qin Wentian's danger level wouldn't be any lower compared to the others. Could it be that after Gusu Tianqi left, they had to wait for him to comprehend the will of the statue? The shocking effect of this battle was clear to see. No one dared to act recklessly anymore. Qin Wentian started to immerse himself in comprehending the will of the statue. The more he comprehended, the more astonished he was. Not only did this statue contain an incomparably tyrannical battle will, it was like a tyrannical immortal art. This immortal art was able to summon towering battle might, causing one's entire body to be shrouded with unfathomable might. In the illusory space, Qin Wentian appeared. Before him, numerous terrifying will manifested, all of them were the will of the statue. Each of them contained a fearsome battle might, akin to a supreme war king, unexcelled in the world. These will shadow manifested together with Qin Wentian's comprehension. The deeper his comprehension, the more will manifested. How powerful! Qin Wentian could faintly sense that there was a strange reaction within his body. It was as though this incomparably wondrous mandate of will was channeled into his body, causing a terrifying battle intent to ignite within him. He could faintly sense the divine essence of these statues, as his aura grew even more powerful. Rumble. Yet another will manifested in the illusory space. This will manifested a fearsome battle halo around it, incomparably resplendent. Not only that, the halo grew increasingly brighter and more terrifying. A beam of intense light shot over. Instantly, a gigantic word, battle, appeared in the air. This word contained a towering battle might that directly gushed into Qin Wentian's illusory body. In just an instant, Qin Wentian felt that he had gained a unique will that could strengthen his body and raise his combat prowess. It was extremely miraculous. Also, this statue wasn't directly imparted to him. The deeper his comprehension, the more tyrannical the inheritance would be. Chapter 833. Battle Art. The will of this immortal statue can be transformed into an immortal battle art. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart as he fully immersed himself in comprehending this mysterious inheritance battle art. This battle art was unfathomably mysterious. Although it seemed like there was only a single type of will, if one's comprehension was deep enough, they would be able to see some extraordinary things. This battle art was formed from the will of the cultivator, and was in perfect harmony with the cultivator's body, as well as their essence, qi, and spirit. A mysterious aura circulated within his body. In the illusory space, Qin Wentian's entire body was enveloped by an intense halo of light as a towering battle intent radiated from him. He was like an immortal king in combat. This process of comprehension took several days. However, Qin Wentian couldn't sense the flow of time at all. It was as though a short period of time had just passed. In the illusory space, the intense light radiating from his body was incomparably resplendent. The will of battle was extremely terrifying as rumbling sounds rang out from his body, as though his body was about to explode, unable to withstand the tyrannical will of battle. Rumble, terrifying rumbling sounds rang out from his body. The illusory body was formed from Qin Wentian's will, and when he comprehended the battle art, it represented Qin Wentian's true self. As he comprehended the battle art, a battle song rang out from his body as his strength skyrocketed. The energy in his body seemed to have transcended the limits of his physical body, causing Qin Wentian to feel as though his body was about to explode. A tyrannical bloodline power gushed forth, as though a primordial demon king had appeared. This caused Qin Wentian's body to glow with a blood-colored light. His body stabilized as he gradually absorbed the will of battle, enduring the tempering. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly, Qin Wentian's body seemed to be transforming unceasingly. In the external world, Qin Wentian stood on top of the immortal statue. Occasionally, rumbling sounds could be heard from his body. These strange rumbling sounds seemed to indicate a transformation, causing the gazes of everyone to be fixated on Qin Wentian. The reaction of this fellow was extremely similar to Gusu Tianqi. He must have obtained the inheritance from the immortal statue, causing his body to have such a strange reaction. The 360 immortal statues in the 100 Immortals Forest are the inheritances left behind by the 360 immortals of the Dongshangshan Gate. The statues at the very front are all inheritances of immortal kings. Especially for these 18 statues, it's rumored that they are all extremely powerful immortal kings. Even immortals would come here to cultivate and gain good fortune. The main reason why the Eastern Sage Cliff is known as a holy land for cultivation is because of the 100 Immortals Forest. However, the statues at the very front are definitely extremely rare. Some of the geniuses of the Eastern Prefecture were more familiar with the Dongshangshan Gate. They were silently musing that if everyone could easily obtain the inheritance from the immortal statues, wouldn't the disciples of the Dongshangshan Gate be incomparably terrifying? The stronger the inheritance, the harder it was to comprehend. It was just like a powerful immortal art. Gusu Tianqi and Qin Wentian both comprehended the same immortal statue. No one knew who would be able to comprehend it more deeply. After that, Gusu Tianqi soared through the air and left. It definitely wasn't because he had completely comprehended the inheritance. He must have reached a bottleneck and knew that he had no way to continue comprehending it. This was why he chose to leave in search of other good fortune. For the 18 statues at the very front, let alone celestial phenomenon ascendants, even immortals wouldn't be able to fully comprehend the power contained within. Hence, from a certain perspective, for those with insufficient comprehension abilities, rather than comprehending the immortal statues at the front, they might as well try to comprehend the immortal statues at the back, which were easier to comprehend. Being able to fully comprehend a type of energy was much more useful compared to just comprehending the slightest bit of it. Qin Wentian's body trembled for a long time before a bright light erupted forth. It was as though his body had undergone a transformation. Although it only lasted for an instant, the instant the light flashed, a tyrannical battle intent gushed forth, causing the eyes of those who were staring at him to gleam with sharpness. However, after that, Qin Wentian's aura calmed down once more as he fully focused on his cultivation. It was as though he wouldn't be able to sense it even if someone were to attack him now. At this moment, a figure slowly walked over. This person was none other than a genius of the Supreme Moon Prefecture. He exuded no aura at all and was completely retracted. Only his gaze would be able to sense his existence. Upon staring at this person, the spectators couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. This person gave off an extremely sinister feeling, like a hunter traversing the darkness, searching for his prey. What does he want to do? Someone noticed the actions of this person, and upon seeing him stopping not far away from Qin Wentian, they instantly realized something. This person wanted to sneak attack Qin Wentian. Such an action was extremely despicable, especially for geniuses of the Eastern Sage Cliff sect. Fighting openly and seizing immortal foundations was something you could do, but sneak attacking others to kill them was simply despicable. However, not everyone would care about what others thought of them. For those who walked the path of darkness, they had outstanding talent and would do anything to achieve their goals. They didn't care about the process at all. This person who approached Qin Wentian was precisely such a person. Qin Wentian. A voice rang out. It was Zi Qingxian, who just so happened to see someone wanting to act against Qin Wentian. Hence, she called out to warn him. But at the same instant she spoke, that person who was retracting his aura abruptly erupted forth. His speed was extremely fast, akin to a dark bolt of lightning. The sickle of the Grim Reaper directly slashed out, aiming for Qin Wentian's head, wanting to sever Qin Wentian's head with a single strike. If this strike landed, Qin Wentian would die for sure. Fast, this strike was simply too fast. This person seemed to have long been prepared for someone to warn him. Hence, at the instant the warning was given, he had already launched his attack. In just an instant, his sickle was already about to sever Qin Wentian's head. And at the same instant, Qin Wentian's body trembled violently. Bell chimes rang out as numerous ancient bells manifested around him. At the same time, a gigantic bell screen of light enveloped him. The death sickle slashed down, causing the sounds of metal clanging to ring out unceasingly. However, it wasn't able to sever Qin Wentian's head. Only to see Qin Wentian abruptly turning, his countenance cold. The senses of stellar martial cultivators were extremely sharp, especially for those who have cultivated to his level. They would instantly be able to sense danger. Although he was immersed in his cultivation, he would still be able to sense danger. Given his strength, he would be able to react in the shortest time possible. Even if Zi Qingxian didn't warn him, this person wouldn't be able to threaten him. Rumble. An intense light erupted forth. A terrifying battle intent gushed forth from Qin Wentian as a battle halo enveloped him. The ancient bells manifested unceasingly, coalescing into a gigantic ancient bell. That sneak attacker instantly retreated after his attack failed. Upon seeing the aura radiating from Qin Wentian, he decisively turned and fled. Bang! Qin Wentian stepped onto the platform, transforming into a wind rock. His speed was even faster compared to before he comprehended the immortal statue. That terrifying battle halo seemed to amplify his strength, causing him to resemble a god of war. That sneak attacker's speed was also extremely fast, but the distance between him and the wind rock continued to shorten. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already left the 100 Immortals forest, transforming into two black dots. But even so, given the vision of everyone, they were still able to clearly see the situation in the distance. They only saw Qin Wendian finally nearing the ambusher. The ancient bell blasted out with boundless might, containing a towering battle might, directly slamming into the body of the ambusher. Qin Wendian showed no mercy, not giving his opponent any chance to flee. Even if he had to temporarily give up on the immortal condor, he still wanted to kill the ambusher. Qin Wendian turned and returned to the immortal statue not long after. He stood in the air with a cold expression as he stared at the immortal statue that was occupied by someone else. There was actually someone who seized the immortal statue while he was away. Since you have already left, this immortal statue is now mine. That person was a genius ranked number 4 and had extremely powerful combat prowess. He stared at Qin Wendian as a fiery heat flickered in his eyes. Scram! Qin Wendian spat out, not giving his opponent any face. His words instantly caused the expression of that person to change as a cold intent gushed forth from him. Boom, boom, boom. The bell chimes rang out unceasingly. Qin Wendian's battle halo shone resplendently as he transformed into a young battle king. The chimes of the ancient bell chimes rang out unceasingly, shaking the souls of the spectators. Qin Wendian stretched out his palm as the ancient bell chimes converged, transforming into an incomparably terrifying battle bell that revolved in Qin Wendian's hand. Destructive light flashed as this gigantic battle bell exuded a fearsome might. That expert standing on the immortal statue felt the might of the battle bell at such a close distance. His countenance drastically changed, becoming extremely unsightly to behold. The destructive light unceasingly blasted into his surroundings. As long as Qin Wendian acted, he would instantly be killed. 3. Qin Wendian coldly spat out, directly counting down, causing the countenance of the heaven chosen to turn ashen. 2. A second voice rang out from Qin Wendian. That person's aura fluctuated wildly as his battle intent towered up into the sky. He wanted nothing more than to roar in rage and soar up into the air, fighting a great battle with Qin Wendian. At this moment, Qin Wendian's aura grew even stronger as the battle bell chimes rang out. After which, Qin Wendian stepped out as he coldly stated, 1. As the sound of his voice faded, that expert's aura seemed to have dissipated. With a single step, he directly left the immortal statue, giving up his seat. This caused everyone to sigh. One of the top 5 rankers of a prefecture was actually frightened away by Qin Wendian. Although this person was ranked number 27 in the Cloud Prefecture, in the Eastern Sage Cliff, he possessed terrifying combat prowess. Not only that, this person's comprehension abilities must be extraordinary. If not, how could he comprehend the immortal statue in such a short period of time? Qin Wendian coldly glanced at the person who left. After that, he stepped out and landed on the seat of the immortal statues. The towering battle might radiating from him was as strong as ever. Lifting his palm, he blasted out a gigantic battle bell, causing the heavens and earth to tremble as a destructive might gushed forth, causing chaotic currents of qi to engulf the entire space. However, his attack was only aimed at the air, there was no target. I'll say it one last time. If anyone dares to provoke me again, I will kill them all. Regardless of who they are, unless they kill me, only death awaits you. Qin Wendian icily spoke, his tone tyrannical. Earlier, when he was fully immersed in comprehending the immortal statue, he was interrupted. One could very well imagine the rage in his heart. Also, the immortal statue contained an extremely powerful battle art, he had to do his best to comprehend it. He couldn't allow his comprehension to be interrupted by others. Hence, he had to be domineering. Gusu Tianqi didn't dare to touch anyone but he, Qin Wendian, dared to bully him. His voice was like a declaration of war. Whoever dared to provoke him, he would have to fight to the death. Chapter 834. Qin Wendian's voice reverberated through the air. As the sound of his voice faded, he closed his eyes again and stood before the immortal statue. His will entered within as though he was immersed within. Numerous statues with towering battle chi appeared before his eyes. Each of the statues shone with battle halos, transforming into marvelous diagrams that flowed through every inch of their bodies. This immortal battling art is unfathomably profound. I wonder how much I can comprehend from it. Qin Wentian didn't dare to be distracted and immersed himself in his comprehension. Time flowed by, the number of geniuses in the Eastern Sage Cliff range decreased. From that day onwards, no one dared to disturb Qin Wentian's cultivation. Occasionally, Qin Wentian would erupt forth with battle halos. Today, in the illusory space, a roar of rage rang out from Qin Wentian's body. His terrifying will transformed into a supreme might, causing a humming sound to echo out from within his body. Once again, his body showed signs of cracking apart, as though he couldn't endure it any longer. A dazzling battle halo radiated from him, yet it seemed as though it wanted to tear his body apart first. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to endure the pressure of this battle art. It was simply too terrifying. Qin Wentian's bloodline roared again as his ancient demon bloodline erupted forth. His entire body glowed with a blood-colored light as crackling sounds rang out unceasingly, protecting and stabilizing his body. Boom, boom, boom. The humming sounds continued unceasingly, as though his body was enduring millions of strikes, causing his body to undergo another transformation. The battle halo started to circulate through every inch of his body, causing his battle chi to grow stronger and stronger. Finally, a violent rumbling sound rang out. Qin Wentian's body radiated an even more dazzling battle light compared to before. His entire person was filled with boundless battle intent. Is this the second level of the battle art? How many levels has Gusu Tianqi comprehended? Qin Wentian silently mused. He didn't stop and continued comprehending. The might of this battle art towered up into the sky and was extremely difficult to comprehend. He poured all of his focus into it, but even so, he felt that his comprehension speed was extremely slow. Also, one's comprehension ability was extremely profound. If one couldn't comprehend it, no matter how much time they spent, they still wouldn't be able to comprehend it. Qin Wentian didn't know that being able to comprehend the second level of the battle art within tens of days was already an extremely rare feat. There were only a handful of disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate who had achieved this before. Upon sensing how powerful this immortal battle art was, Qin Wentian's heart was completely focused as he immersed himself in comprehending it. However, after that, when he tried to comprehend the statues, he discovered that it was extremely difficult for him to continue comprehending it. Not only that, the fearsome battle intent permeated his body, and every time it descended, he felt as though his body was about to shatter apart. As the rumbling sounds echoed out, Qin Wentian's ancient demon bloodline erupted forth frenziedly, resembling a supreme demon king. At the same time, strands of white runic light flowed around his body, containing unique runic patterns that unceasingly fused into his body. Very swiftly, Qin Wentian's body was shrouded in a layer of incomparably holy light. His entire person seemed to have undergone a transformation, resembling a descendant of a godly king, dignified and inviolable. The halo of battle intent seeped into Qin Wentian's body, but the effect it had on him gradually lessened. It was no longer able to cause his body to tremble, and the halo of battle intent was even about to be absorbed by his body. At this moment, Qin Wentian's comprehension abilities seemed to have undergone a qualitative transformation. The feeling he felt earlier returned as numerous statues with towering battle might appeared before him. The 100 Immortals forest gradually calmed down. Those who could remain on the immortal statues were all true geniuses, the others had no way to contend against them. Hence, many of them could only head to the other regions of the Eastern Sage Cliff in search of good fortune. And in the Eastern Sage Cliff, the number of geniuses remaining also grew lesser and lesser. However, for those who could remain, they weren't as focused on combat as before. They spent more time improving themselves, most likely understanding that the purpose of the Eastern Sage Cliff test wasn't merely to select the most outstanding elites, it was also to raise their strength. After all, those who remained at the very end had a high chance of becoming disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate. In the blink of an eye, it has already been half a year since the geniuses entered the Eastern Sage Cliff test. To Immortal Foundation characters, this amount of time couldn't be considered much. After stepping into the Immortal Foundation realm, they would occasionally close their eyes to cultivate, and when they opened their eyes again, several years had already passed. Hence, the immortals outside the Eastern Sage Cliff test were still patiently waiting. Within the Dongshengshan Gate, outside an incomparably majestic palace, a young man could be seen standing there, exuding an extraordinary demeanor. "Your Highness, these are the invitations from the various immortal kings. When the grand banquet begins, the immortal kings would all be present." At this moment, a powerful character walked over to the young man and bowed, extremely courteously. The young man received the invitations and casually browsed through them. When the grand banquet begins, his royal father would accept 3 disciples. The Eastern Sage 13 prefectures was held once every 100 years, and the immortal kings would also send invitations in advance. There was basically no need for the Dongshengshan Gate to take the initiative to invite them. This young man was none other than the youngest son of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, Dongxing Ting. This time around, the grand banquet would be hosted by him. As he browsed through the invitations, Dongxing Ting's expression was calm. These invitations were all sent over by immortal kings or he wouldn't be able to read them personally. However, as the son of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, his status was incomparably lofty. He had seen many immortal kings and all of them were extremely respectful to him. Hence, his horizons were naturally very high and he wasn't shocked at all when he saw the names of the immortal kings. But at this moment, Dongxing Ting's eyes suddenly flashed with sharpness as he stared at one of the invitations. There was no specific content on this invitation, only the title, Princess of the Evergreen Kingdom. "Princess Qing is coming." A dazzling light flickered in Dongxing Ting's eyes, there was actually a hint of heat within. That pair of eyes which would remain calm even after seeing the names of immortal kings, was now filled with spirit. He wanted to interact with Princess Qing many times but she ignored him. After that, he didn't even have the chance to meet with her. Now, what was the meaning of this invitation? The Princess of the Evergreen Kingdom? Was it Princess Qing personally coming to attend the grand banquet? During these past few years, he had heard many stories about Princess Qing. She was a woman who was known as an innate immortal king. She unceasingly broke the seals in her body and even took a supreme character as her master, allowing her cultivation to improve at a godly speed. In this vast region, she had already become one of the most famous characters in the immortal realms. Such fame was no longer limited to the regions controlled by an immortal emperor. It was unknown how many supreme geniuses wanted to become the son-in-law of the Chongqing the Great. These people were all the same as Dongxing Ting, regardless of talent or background, they were all extraordinary. For this grand banquet, we have to prepare it well and surpass the previous ones. Let's hope that the participants from the 13 prefectures wouldn't disappoint us. Dongxing Ting commanded, his voice thundering out in all directions. "Yes, Your Highness. We obey Your Highness' command." Numerous voices rang out. At this moment, a beam of light flashed as a terrifying character appeared beside Dongxing Ting. He smiled at Dongxing Ting and asked, "Your Highness Ting, why are you so happy?" Dongxing Ting turned his gaze over and passed the letter over to the other party. After that person read it, his countenance also gleamed with sharpness before he laughed, "Ha, right now the daughter of the Chongqing the Great, Princess Qing, is truly radiating brilliance. Her father is an immortal emperor and her master is a supreme existence in the immortal realms. Their statuses aren't in any way inferior to her father and in addition to her innate talent, an innate immortal king. With 2 supreme existences guiding her, if there's anyone who can marry Princess Qing, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in the immortal realms." That expert spoke as he cast a deep glance at Dongxing Ting. Dongxing Ting's eyes flickered with high spirits, he didn't hide his thoughts at all. The people around him could naturally sense it. Only a woman like Princess Qing, would be worthy of him, Dongxing Ting. "Has the first round of the competition at the Eastern Sage Cliff ended yet?" Dongxing Ting asked. "It should be done soon." That expert replied. Dongxing Ting nodded. At this moment, in the eastern sage cliff, the geniuses were all comprehending their own insights or fighting against each other. For the 18 statues at the forefront, there were people who left while there were others who succeeded. Naturally, a great battle was unavoidable. However, Qin Wentian didn't leave from the start. The battle art within the statues was too profound, it was impossible for him to completely comprehend it. In the illusory space, several statues manifested before Qin Wentian unceasingly. An incomparably powerful battle halo radiated from his body as rumbling sounds echoed unceasingly. Both his bloodlines were activated at the same time. Qin Wentian, who was like a descendant of a god king, was as calm as still water. Even if there was a towering battle around him, it wouldn't affect him in the slightest. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as the will of battle unceasingly bombarded his body. Finally, a resplendent beam of light shot out. Qin Wentian's body was bathed in boundless battle might as he transformed into a young battle king. The will of battle before him transformed into an incomparably profound diagram, imprinting itself into his vision as it rushed into his will. Boom! As this terrifying will bore down on him, Qin Wentian, who was standing on the statue, abruptly shuddered. After that, he groaned in misery as his eyes abruptly opened, gleaming with sharpness as a towering battle intent flashed within. Qin Wentian's mind trembled violently. His will actually had no way to continue withstanding the battle might and was forced out. This was simply too terrifying. Unless he stepped into the immortal realm, he wouldn't be able to continue comprehending this statue. 3-level battle art. Qin Wentian mumbled. He cast a deep glance at the statue before him before bowing slightly and walking down from it. He already had no way to continue comprehending the will of the statue. Next, he could only rely on himself to comprehend the battle art. At the instant Qin Wentian stepped down, the gazes of many turned to that statue. Faintly, another storm was about to erupt. "Senior brother, you have also finished your cultivation?" Only to see that at this moment, Jun Mengchen had also stopped his cultivation. From the start till now, he was still trying to comprehend the King Dao statue. "Michum, how do you feel?" Qin Wentian smiled as he asked. "Extremely good. His comprehension is very deep and his strength has increased by quite a bit. This time around, his chances of passing this trial are even greater." A fanatical light flashed in Jun Mengchen's eyes. However, there were also many who were staring at the two of them as they mused in their hearts. The situation in the eastern sage cliff was extremely unique. Qin Wentian was extremely powerful here, but once he exited the cliff, everything would be different. At that time, it was still unknown what would happen. For example, if Qin Wentian released Black Peak, Qin Wentian would definitely not spare him. Chapter 835. Qin Wentian stared at the crowd. Other than the 360 seats being occupied, there weren't too many people remaining in this region. Zi Qingxian had already left as well. Most probably, after she finished comprehending, she left to search for other good fortune. "Let's go to another place to take a look." Qin Wentian spoke to Jun Mengchen. The two of them then soared through the air and separated a few moments later. By doing so, the chances of them searching for good fortune would be greater. Qin Wentian transformed into a wind rock as he sped through the air. But at this moment, a voice drifted over from the void. In the eastern sage cliff, there are still over 1,000 participants remaining. This voice rang out through the entire eastern sage cliff. As the sound of the voice faded, countless people inclined their heads as their eyes gleamed with a dazzling light. As long as another 50 participants were eliminated, they would be able to enter the next round and at the same time, become a disciple of the Dongshengshan Gate. Qin Wentian also halted his steps. He inclined his head and stared at the sky. There were still 50 participants remaining. Seems like there wasn't much time left. Most probably, this round would end very soon. Stepping out, Qin Wentian's silhouette moved like the wind, landing on an ancient mountain peak. He closed his eyes and stood there, quietly comprehending the insights he gained during these few days. During the half a year he spent in the eastern sage cliff, his improvement wasn't small at all. This was the benefit of being a disciple of a major power. Good fortune was always within the sect and could be obtained at any time. An instant later, Qin Wendian, who was on the mountain peak, entered a miraculous meditative state. His body abruptly emitted a crisp sound, as though he had activated his battle light. In an instant, his entire body was shrouded by the battle light as his aura towered up into the heavens. After which, Qin Wendian waved his palms, executing fist arts, sword arts, spear arts, and bell arts, all of them containing a marvelous might. The sound of the wind whistling could be heard as he unleashed an even stronger battle halo. An instant later, an even stronger battle halo appeared around him as his entire body underwent a transformation, exuding an even stronger might. How refreshing! Qin Wendian silently mused. He opened his eyes and retracted his aura, but the battle halo still revolved around him, incomparably resplendent. Right now, Qin Wendian was already proficient in using it. At this moment, the silhouette of an expert soared through the air. His silhouette was as fast as lightning, causing the air around him to howl in rage. His eyes were like an eagle hunting for its prey. Abruptly, he saw Qin Wendian below as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Ranked number 27 of the Cloud Prefecture, although it wasn't bad, it was time for him to scram. If he killed this person, he would be one step closer to joining the Eastern Sage Immortal sect. As he thought of this, his silhouette flickered, akin to a falcon as he soared through the air. He was like a bolt of gray lightning, causing rumbling sounds to ring out as a terrifying aura gushed towards Qin Wendian. His killing intent gushed forth, wanting to tear Qin Wendian apart in an instant. His eyes were filled with loftiness and sharpness. Qin Wendian inclined his head. With just a single glance, his eyes were filled with battle intent, capable of penetrating through space. Just a single glance was sufficient to give off an incomparably terrifying feeling. The battle halo around him was incomparably resplendent as his aura towered up into the sky. That expert's countenance changed as he sensed that something was wrong. This person seemed to be extremely strong. However, his speed was incomparably fast. In just an instant, he had already descended, unleashing a terrifying attack. It was impossible for him to retreat at this moment. Qin Wendian lifted his palms as sword chi erupted forth. With a wave of his hand, a battle halo enveloped the area. With a piercing sound, that expert's body was directly lacerated by the sword chi, his soul disintegrated. The battle light shone resplendently, revolving around Qin Wendian. His countenance was calm. Ever since he entered the Eastern Sage Cliff, he had never taken the initiative to provoke others. But if someone dared to offend him, he wouldn't spare them easily. After killing the intruder, Qin Wendian continued his cultivation. Time flowed by and finally, the light screen above the Eastern Sage Cliff flickered as another voice rang out, "The battle in the Eastern Sage Cliff has come to an end. The remaining 1,000, find a spatial formation and exit immediately. It's over." Within the Eastern Sage Cliff, there were still 1,000 participants. They inclined their heads and stared at the air, feeling a sense of reluctance in their hearts. It was as though they still wanted to stay here to comprehend and cultivate. However, since the Dongshengshan Gate has already issued the order, they could only choose to exit. Qin Wendian was naturally the same as well. His silhouette flickered like lightning and an instant later, he saw a small-scale spatial formation flickering with golden light. After which, he stepped out and directly landed on top of it, using astral energy to form a connection. The fluctuations of space caused spatial fluctuations and an instant later, Qin Wendian felt his body being teleported away. In the next instant, he stood in the vast space outside the Eastern Sage Cliff. Around him, there were many other participants who appeared. One figure after another appeared in the surroundings. Not long after, a total of 1,000 people appeared in this place. As for those who had been eliminated, they seemed to have already left. Perhaps they had no reason to continue staying here. "We're out." Mu Yan walked over to Qin Wendian. Evidently, he had also passed. After him, Jun Mengchen and Zi Qingxian also walked over. The four of them gathered together, while the others were in groups of 3 to 5. They came from the same prefecture and were already acquainted with each other. You're finally out. An ice-cold voice drifted over, filled with a tinge of piercing to the ears. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over, only to see Blackpeak walking towards him. Blackpeak's sinister eyes stared at him as an extremely dense killing intent flickered in his eyes. After being humiliated by Qin Wentian in the Eastern Sage Cliff, one could very well imagine how strong Blackpeak's killing intent was towards Qin Wentian. Most probably, he wanted nothing more than to tear Qin Wentian into 1,000 pieces. A loser actually dares to come here to be so arrogant? Jun Mengchen stared at Blackpeak as he mocked. That was because his luck was better back in the Eastern Sage Cliff. Next, I truly want to see how long you can survive. Blackpeak's voice was sinister. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at the people before him, not intending to spare a single one of them. Have you forgotten how you picked up your life? Qin Wentian's eyes were incomparably sharp as he stared at Blackpeak. That will be the thing you will regret the most in your life. Blackpeak coldly spoke. After that, he turned and departed. Qin Wentian coldly glanced at him before no longer looking at him. Since he spared Blackpeak, he knew that Blackpeak wouldn't let this matter rest. However, that was his decision. Congratulations to everyone. At this moment, a voice rang out, drowning out all the noise. Everyone inclined their heads only to see the expert from the Dongshengshan Gate speaking. From now onwards, all of you can join the Dongshengshan Gate and become an outer disciple. After the grand banquet ends, as long as you are willing, you can join us. Many felt agitated. The Dongshengshan Gate was the ruler of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. Their strength was so powerful that it was terrifying. Right now, they finally had a foot in the Dongshengshan Gate and obtained the recognition of the Dongshengshan Gate. Naturally, there were also some who were as calm as before. Given their absolute confidence in their own strength, they weren't excited at all to be able to join the Dongshengshan Gate. They all had a higher goal in mind. However, the test at the Eastern Sage Cliff is merely the beginning. 1,000 of you can become an outer disciple. In that case, if you can pass the second test, you can directly become a core disciple of the Dongshengshan Gate. After the second test, a total of 160 people will be selected. These 160 people will be able to meet the supreme characters of our Eastern Sage 13 prefectures and participate in the banquet organized by the Dongshengshan Gate together with them. In fact, they might even have a chance to improve further. That expert from the Dongshengshan Gate laughed, his words causing the eyes of many to flicker with sharpness. Next, what they had to compete for was to become a core disciple of the Dongshengshan Gate, receiving special nurturing, participating in the banquet and meeting supreme characters of the various prefectures. After that, they would have the chance to enter the tutelage of the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor and become his personal disciple. Even if they were just an in-name disciple, they would already have an extremely high status within the Dongshengshan Gate. For example, a sage child like Yi Zixuan would have immense authority and could mobilize a troop of troops within the Dongshengshan Gate to wage war. Regardless of what benefits there were, sage children would always have priority. The sage children of the Dongshengshan Gate would be nurtured as the leader of the Dongshengshan Gate. Right now, there were many experts in charge of the Dongshengshan Gate, and many of them were sage child characters, disciples of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. Once one became a disciple of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, they would instantly have an Empyrean status. As long as we advance to the next round, we would be able to become a core disciple and have the chance to gather together with the supreme experts of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. Many felt excitement in their hearts. Next, it was time to see the results of the second round. However, the second round of the examination of the Dongshengshan Gate will be extremely brutal, a tempering exercise of blood and iron. This isn't merely a test for you guys, it's also a test for the disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate. For this round of examination, all of you will be in the same space as the other disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate, undergoing a true tempering exercise of blood and iron. They will hunt you down, and the more you kill, the more rewards they will receive. Although there are also small-scale teleportation arrays inside, they will spare no expense to kill you all. The words of the expert from the Dongshengshan Gate caused the hearts of the crowd to tremble. contending against the geniuses of the Dongshengshan Gate. Not only that, the other party would hunt them down. Naturally, there's one thing you guys can be at ease about. In this space, your cultivation bases can be seen with a single glance. Only those at the same level of cultivation can fight against each other. Whoever dares to violate this rule would be considered to have violated the rules. Hence, there's no need to worry about the higher-level disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate hunting down those with lower cultivation bases. At the same time, it's the same for you guys as well, only those at the same level of cultivation are allowed to fight against each other. That expert added. However, the hearts of the crowd still couldn't be at ease. So what if they were at the same level of cultivation? They had to undergo numerous tests before they could enter the Dongshengshan Gate, and the one hunting them down was already a disciple of the Dongshengshan Gate. Not only that, the expert only stated that those at the same level of cultivation could fight against each other. This meant that for this round of combat, there was no restriction on the number of participants. It was easy to imagine that once this battle erupted, it would definitely be extremely tragic. This was most probably the iron and blood test that the Dongshengshan Gate used to test their disciples. Only by doing this could they select the true elites. Follow me. If you guys don't dare to accept the tempering exercise, you can directly exit from the small-scale teleportation array. You will still be an outer disciple of the Dongshengshan Gate after that. That expert soared into the air and flew towards another direction.